I was walking around in a t-shirt all day today. Sweatshirt, hoodie? No. Snow jacket? Boots? Not today. I didn't even have to get mad at my kid for wearing shorts to school today, so. Yeah, we're in the same world. It's the same planet. It's 1 week later. It was almost 70 degrees today. Last Friday it was 4 degrees and, 4 degrees and we had like a half a foot of snow. So, that's what the weather does. That's why I'm a meteorologist. Anyway, almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out all the stuff we got going on in there. Favorite podcast provider. Like, friend, follow, share. Text it to your good pals. Tell them all about it. Shout out to my hairdresser today if you're listening to this brand new episode, because I spent the whole time getting my haircut talking about myself and my podcast. So anyway, we're almost agreement. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about tonight, and by fun I mean some of it's not that fun at all. So here we go. It's showtime, people. What was the high today? 62?
It was like low 60s, yeah.
I'm sorry. Almost 70 when it was fucking 7 degrees last week when we were taping.
Did you get your rounding skills? Was it Knox County Schools? Public schools?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Thank you, Knox County Schools. Taught me how to round numbers. Well, it might have been Racine County.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Might have been Alcoa County in Florida. I don't remember. When do you learn how to round numbers? I'm not going to lie.
Definitely elementary.
I'm not going to lie. I was watching my kid do math last night, and I could do the math he was doing. I just couldn't figure out how he was doing it.
I struggled with that years ago.
It's fucking weird.
Because they changed a little bit of like how they teach certain things. And I'm like, that's
kids
not the way
days.
I thought about doing that, mathematical process.
Like we've talked about before, I'm not against them trying it different ways. Some kids may learn it better some ways than other. But it's sure shit weird to me. But, okay, so I don't know. How bad do you want to start? Like, do you want to start with the bad or the real bad?
I guess let's work our way into the real bad, so maybe bad.
Okay,
first.
so this is my opinion of the... I don't know. I don't know how to rate these two. They're both real bad. 2 Gibbs Middle School students are in custody in Knox County Correctional Facility for juveniles.
Did see that. For
calling in a fake... gun bomb? I don't remember if it was gun. I don't know if they were going to shoot the place up or if it was a bomb or whatever. Anyway, they called in for Halls, one of the Hall schools, on Thursday. So, it was bad enough that we lost like a week plus of school, and then Halls has their half day, their early or their late entry day disrupted by a hoax bomb threat or something like that.
Gibbs student, I believe.
Yeah, it's 2 kids. I think it was 2 kids from Gibbs. I don't remember. Anyway. It's stupid. Don't do it, people. It's dumb. It's not funny.
I read that it was like 2 slightly separate ones. That there were like 3 that were involved in it, but then there was one that had to do with the threat that was made on like a bus.
Yeah, I don't know. It's stupid. It's just stupid. I hate it. It's just a dumb thing. It's like, I don't know. You should know better. Like, that's part of it for sure. You should know better. You don't make those jokes.
Yeah, like one of them was.
But at the same time, you're a middle school
grader.
Yeah. Like that's what, a 12-year-old, maybe 13.
Yeah,
they're stupid. They are stupid. They just are, because they're 12-year-olds. Period. Not this individual one. Most, if not all, 12-year-olds are pretty stupid. And so the fact that this kid's probably he's going to carry this mark probably for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I'm
assuming it's a he. My bad.
I mean, it depends on, I guess, how it adjudicates.
Yeah,
as to whether or not it stays on his record or.
But I mean, for the sake of consistency in the school system and all their, got to be tough on this kind of stuff, they've got to throw the fucking hammer at him. I mean, they've got to. Right. And I don't blame them, and I think they should, but it's like, it's just a weird, shitty spot. It's a stupid thing to do. It's a stupid, systematic way that they have to deal with it.
Is there like a Gibbs-Halls rivalry? It's one thing that kind of confused me. I was like, wait, why was a Gibbs student calling in into Halls?
Right, because like my first reaction was, oh, some kid trying to get out of a test or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like he's supposed to have a project due that was due before this whole winter breakdown thing.
An extreme option.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have a project.
And we got that congressman pulling the fire alarm just so he could vote. That was a joke. Relax, people. Be easy, buddy. That was a joke.
Okay.
Well, you got pretty mad when I asserted that congressman pulled the fire alarm on purpose so that he would delay that vote.
I was taking him at his word.
Okay, I'm just saying. It's anyway, stupid thing to do. All right, so if that was bad, what could possibly be worse? And I guess technically this one isn't worse because it isn't. It isn't law. It isn't law yet, but it is. A bill has been introduced by the one and only Jason Zachary in his continued jerktitude, whatever we were going to call it.
I think I did read about that.
Which I don't know. Like I was kind of taken back by this when I was first explained to me. So essentially, it basically makes it a felony for an adult who isn't the parent to take a kid out of state to get an abortion. And it opens up civil.
Let's say
the parent can.
It allows that the parent can? I thought it was just anyone that assists in a minor.
The parent is exempt, which, and that's the part that I thought was
that's
most
fucked up.
That's the part that I thought was most interesting about it. It's like, well, if I took a kid out of state without the permission of the parents, that's a felony.
Right.
It doesn't matter what we're doing out of state.
Right,
that's called kidnapping.
Right.
And it's like, well, maybe, sort of, whatever. It's like, no, that's fucking kidnapping. Like, if I went over to my brother's house and took one of his nieces, now the niece might have said, sure, Uncle Seth, let's go.
Right, but without the parents' knowledge.
But without their knowledge, they start freaking out and they call. And they get a hold of her through her phone, or they call me on my phone. Like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, me and Kiddo are going up to. My stupid example that I was doing when I was talking to the Compass guys about it is like, we're going to go up to a Kentucky basketball game. We're going to go see a game at Rupp. And my brother's like, no, you bring my fucking daughter back right now. It's like, no, we're already halfway there. Come on, man, it's not that big a deal. It's like, no, bring my fucking daughter back. The reasonable legal response to that would be he gets off the phone with me, he calls police. He's like, hey, my brother just kidnapped my daughter. He's taking her to Rupp Arena in Lexington. To which I would assume that the locals call some people in Lexington and be like, hey, we got this guy.
Yeah.
Maybe put out an Amber Alert or whatever, because it's technically an Amber Alertable issue,
right,
and stuff like that. And I go to jail for kidnapping. So why do, so right on the face value of it, it's like, okay, there's a whole set of civil stuff that this Zachary thing's open, which we'll talk about that here in a second. But just on the front end felony part, it's like that already exists. It seems redundant to me, and ridiculous for that matter, in the redundancy. I can't think of a situation that makes sense to me where an adult who isn't the parent or guardian of this child doesn't have the right to ask the state to charge another adult with a felony if they take their kid against their permission. That is definitionally kidnapping to me. I don't care what the argument is or what the reason for it for this other adult taking the kid. I don't give a shit. If my kid says, yeah, let's go, that's kidnapping.
Sure, that's what the language says. I would like to think that he vetted it with some kind of legal analysis.
See, I make fun of myself for giving them credit for being smarter than they are, but there's a lot of times where you do that too. I don't think so. I think this is literally just another one. It's another one of the cooler laws that they're putting in place. It doesn't really do anything. It probably won't really legally stand up in any real way. Now, maybe some of the civil stuff might in-state, but even that's a little complicated. Because you can't. The state of Tennessee cannot. We made the example when the original abortion ban was coming down in the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee cannot make a law that says you're not allowed to go to Nevada and gamble in Las Vegas and come back. I mean, you can, but we're gonna charge you with gambling in Tennessee, even though you did it in Vegas.
Unless it was sports betting,
right? Through an authorized online whatever.
Cool,
yeah. Well, I mean, apparently that pays for that stuff that Massey's working on. So I don't know. I think that's a interesting thing. It's like, well, let's just tax the people who have problems more,
right?
To pay for stuff. Because then normal people feel good about it because we're taxing those people with problems, so maybe they'll stop doing those stupid things. But we need those people to keep doing those stupid things, or we don't get the taxes to pay for the shit that we like that they pay for.
It's not coming out of our money; it's just coming out of other people.
I mean, that was a huge thing in vaping early on. So back in the 80s or 90s or whatever, there was when all the lawsuits started coming off and the law changed and people were suing tobacco companies and cigarette makers for giving them lung cancer from their product.
Yeah.
There was I guess Department of Justice stepped in and basically said, okay, here's the deal. Anybody who wants to get in on a class action, get in on a class action right now, but it's instead of it being a class action against whatever, we're going to add this special tax. All the different states are going to do this special thing. And basically we're going to build a fund out of taxing cigarettes as both a deterrent and a fund to help pay for the medical care you're going to need as you age from smoking. I cannot remember what it's called, but there's a thing that's what they did. And so what had happened was the states started borrowing against that fund and using it for other options and stuff like that and depleting that fund. And then, over time, less people are smoking just naturally over the course of time. It has become clear and evident that smoking is a bad idea. And even though there's still a decent percentage of people that smoke, that percentage has been dropping over the years. And then when vaping came in, there was a significant market drop in cigarette smoking because people were transitioning to vaping. Smart, not smart, whatever. That's not the argument at play. But that significant drop in smoking, one of the reasons states were freaking out about vaping was not because they thought it was bad or worse or whatever. It's because people are getting their nicotine fix, but they're not paying the taxes that go into paying for the long-term health care that we borrowed money from a decade ago that we haven't paid back yet. Mm-hmm. And so that was part of that thing right there. Anyway, going back to the original, before we went rambling down other rabbit holes, I'm very confused about this Zachary bill, other than it's just a cooler. It's just to scare you, scare people, scare minors who get pregnant on accident.
I wonder if he did it in hopes that it would get whittled down and then he would still be able to pass some kind of legislation on it.
Right, but even whittled down. He did it
in the extreme point to be like, okay, maybe in case he gets some kind of support behind it now that it's been announced.
I mean, the criminal part, I don't understand how it. The criminal part already exists, so there's no whittling down on that to me, because you can't really. I mean, you would have to go again. You already have the kidnapping charge in play.
See, I don't think
but for this,
you unknowingly, I think this is more just for assisting in having.
You would have to prove that the adult had intent to take the kid out of state for the abortion, not just that they had intent to take him out of the state. It would be theoretically. The defense argument could be, we just went down to Atlanta to see a concert. And while we were there, she mentioned it, and so she went to the abortion clinic while we were there. That would be the defense. We didn't go with the intent to get the abortion. It just happened while we were there. That's your defense as the other adult. You're still a kidnapper, I would think, by Tennessee law.
See, I don't, the way I read it, I don't think that's how I understood that. It was more, I guess, kind of more like an after the fact, that if it's proven that the procedure was done, if you assisted in it by taking them there, you are now guilty of facilitating.
Again, I would still think the burden of proof being that you'd have to knowingly do it, right? It couldn't be inadvertently.
No, not necessarily. No.
Okay, so the example would be, let's say, on a family vacation, we went to Vegas, and Vegas is theoretically family friendly. And my kid gambled while he was in Vegas because some casino let him. And I bring him back, and it's like, you endangered your child by letting him gamble in a casino in Vegas. It's like, well, I don't know. It seems like 2 steps away from the original, and you can't really do that across state lines. Okay, better example. All right, maybe a better example would be like, me and you we road trip down to Atlanta, right? Let's just go down to Atlanta. Let's go hang out. Let's go hit the bars, check out the scene, get a hotel, go to Georgia Tech, hit on some Georgia Tech girls, whatever. Let's go putz around Atlanta for a couple. Let's just whatever. We go to a concert, we go to a Braves game. It doesn't matter. While we're there, I'm hanging out, chatting up, whatever, hanging out in some place, meeting people, doing whatever, and you disappear for a couple hours. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know. I mean, I legitimately don't know what you're doing, or at least my argument in court would be I don't know what you're doing. But while you disappear for a couple hours, you go break into some place and steal a bunch of shit. You don't say anything. You just throw it in the car or whatever. And, we finished our night, and as far as I know, you just went and bought a hooker. I don't know. Whatever you did for a couple hours. You just disappeared for a couple hours. You came back. We finished partying up, living it up in Atlanta. Come back to Knoxville. Can Knoxville charge me with an accessory in that? Tennessee?
In my understanding of that scenario, I would not think that legally you would be culpable for that. Unless you drove me to the place that I was breaking into or whatever.
Right. Well, but there's 2 levels of that.
Because that's what you mean an accessory. Is essentially you helped me by taking me to the place. Right,
but I think Georgia might have a case against me for being an accessory, but Tennessee certainly would not. Because because the crime took place in Georgia. And the argument here with this abortion thing is, well, it's not a crime in Georgia for this certain sets of abortion rights that are available in Georgia that aren't available here. So no crime took place in the state where the crime is where the crime was alleged to have been committed It's out of state.
I mean, I don't know the specifics
how does
of it if it is down to knowingly, like you said.
But even that, even if knowingly, it doesn't make any sense. Like, how can Tennessee have any authority over that other than the obvious? You're fucking kidnapping somebody. It doesn't matter what you're going to another state to do. The fact that you took a kid against their parents' will should be considered kidnapping. Period. Other than that, I don't see how you could possibly make a crime out of it.
I don't know why you're throwing in like that against the person's will. Like,
Not the person's, the parents, without the parents' knowledge.
I didn't read anything that had to do with like parental knowledge of this or that.
Right. My understanding.
It was basically
was
if you were an accessory to a minor going out of state to have a procedure performed.
My understanding is that the parents are the parents or guardians are exempt from the specifics of this law.
I don't know.
Let me see if I
briefly perused it real quick. I just happened to see it earlier.
Oh, okay. That changed. Okay, so here's the actual language from the Tennessean. House Bill 1895. Holy shit, we got 1,895 bills already. The legislation would establish a new Class C felony, which would carry out 3 to 15 years in prison for an adult who, quote, recruits, harbors, or transports a pregnant minor for the purposes of receiving an out-of-state abortion or for getting abortion medication. Parents or legal guardians are exempt and would be allowed to take their kid out of state. However, if another adult helps a pregnant minor obtain an abortion, that minor's consent doesn't matter. Which again, that goes to the same thing. So I guess the theory in the law is that I'd be like, hey Sam, will you take my daughter down to Atlanta to get an abortion? I can't do it for reason X, Y, or Z. I can't be a part of this, but it needs to get done. I don't know. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like it does. I guess it doesn't preclude the parent from having knowledge of it, but it necessitates that the parents. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
You could the parent could have knowledge if
right. Without the parent's knowledge, it would be kidnapping. With the parent's knowledge, this seems just kind of like a runaround. It sounds like, well, actually, I don't know. I was going to say I thought it was kind of a runaround for like parents to get out of it, but parents are already excluded.
Right. I mean, I think that
who is this going after?
I would think that the target is the target would be groups whom, like, because I mean, I've heard people talk about doing a hey, call me, I'll take you to Virginia,
right?
And I mean. And there is a part of me that gives a little pause. I'm not saying I should or shouldn't. I'm not saying I like or dislike. It's not even a hill I really want to stand on, let alone pick a fight with. But there is part of me that, like, this whole conversation, circumventing parent knowledge on a lot of things. This goes with schooling stuff as well as this abortion stuff. And there's a whole lot of stuff out there that of conversation where the parent's authority over the child is put into is put in suspect at minimum. Where it's like, well, and again, abortion's a fucking crazy one. But, it's like my 17-year-old wants to get an abortion. I don't want to let him get an abortion as their parent. I don't know. That's a little dicey. They're 17. It's pretty damn close. I'm not sure. This goes into my age of consent argument anyway, which is a whole other separate thing. But I'm saying, like, there's, like, I don't know. I guess it goes both ways. I mean, theoretically, it would go both ways. So, like, a 12-year-old gets pregnant on accident somehow. And the parents want the kid to have an abortion, but the kid doesn't want to have the abortion. Do the parents have the right to force that? Not in Tennessee, obviously, because they can't get an abortion, period. But if abortion was legal, could a parent force a child to have an abortion?
Don't believe so.
I'd be interested.
I would assume a doctor would not knowingly do that.
I don't know. Like, I have a weird. There's a weird, like, spot that pokes at the back of my head when we get into this parental rights and parental control over their kids thing, because, like, there's a lot of talk of parents should have more control, and then there's a lot of talk of parents should have less control or no control. Because, like I said, I was very upset to find out that my 12-year-old, if he wanted to, could have gone and can go get vaccines without my knowledge or permission. That I don't like that. I'm not okay with that. Now, if he wants to get them and wants to talk to me about it, or even if he wants to go to his doctor and ask for him, and the doctor wants to call me and be like, hey, your kid's wanting to do this thing, we need to sit down and talk about it. Okay. That's okay. But the idea that my child can just make medical intervention choices for himself right now at 12 years old, I'm not okay with that. Without my knowledge, I'm not okay with that. Period. Full stop. Now, my permission is another level to that I'm not sure about. I need to put more thought into that part of it. But flat out, without my knowledge, I'm not okay with that, especially with protection from the state or anything like that as well.
I kind of feel like you're mixing kind of two.
Again, I'm not
kind of greatly different things.
Abortion's a whole other animal. I agree. I'm not saying that, but whatever. If the argument is abortion is a medical procedure, fine. Then it's a medical procedure. I'm not okay with my 12-year-old having a medical procedure of any kind without my knowledge. Minimum my knowledge, let alone my permission.
Even just the term medical procedure has a wide swath of things.
I agree. Right. That whole wide swath is I have a right to know as a parent if my kid wants to get those, whatever they are, from the most basic to the most complicated. I mean, fuck, the school system is obliged by law to tell me if my kid bumps his head at recess.
Right.
I would think that then a doctor is obliged by law to tell me that he wants to cut off my kid's dick or anything in between there. At least tell me. I'm not even advocating.
You're comparing it to getting a vaccine, and I think you're muddying the waters here.
No, I don't. I think it's a simple. I don't think my kid should be allowed to have any medical procedure of any kind, with at minimum without my knowledge. I'm on the fence I need to put more thought into it, but I'm on the fence of saying without my permission. But just for the sake of conversation, I'm going to stop it without my knowledge.
Right.
I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's... okay, maybe I do. Maybe there is a few exceptions, like they can put a Band-Aid on a scraped knee at school without telling me.
Why? It's a medical procedure.
I know, but it's ridiculous. But whatever. Fine. If I have to be an all or nothing on it, then I'm going to be. Then yes, they need to call me and say, "Hey, kid scraped his knee. We're going to put a Band-Aid on."
I'm assuming they would notify you anyway of an injury.
He's come home. They've come home with like Band-Aids and stuff from time to time and just didn't say anything. Usually the Band-Aid is the notification. It's like, hey, I scraped my knee at recess. Yeah. Obviously.
If you didn't notice it on your child, then you got other problems.
Right. That's my own fault. Anyway, I'm just saying, though, like just to put out a blanket statement, no, there is no situation that I can think of that I'm okay with any medical procedure being done on my child without my knowledge beforehand. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Okay.
But obviously some people do think it's not okay for me to say. You don't think that's okay?
That to what again?
That no medical procedure should be allowed to be done on my child without my knowledge first. Again, I'm not saying my permission yet.
Right.
But at least my knowledge. I should be able to know that. Going from a possible concussion on the playground to an abortion or a sex change operation or anything in between. I don't think that's a crazy thing for me to say, but I know there's people out there that do. I won't say I'm not looking at you on this one other than you're sitting across from me right now.
Right.
There are people out there who would say, I don't give a shit what you think and what you think your kids should or shouldn't be doing with their lives. They want to do this, they can do this. And it's like, I don't like that. I'm not okay with that. I don't think that's appropriate. And again, I'm just talking about knowledge, not even permission.
I think there's certain levels of it. I mean, I don't want to say you want to take it like a case-by-case basis, but, let's say you've got a parent that is totally against any kind of medical intervention.
Yeah.
And a kid is just sick as a fucking dog and somehow makes it to a walk-in clinic.
Okay. I mean, I think that in and of itself would bring a whole set of specifics into play that wouldn't contradict my point. I think you go in there, if some kid showed up that parents are like that, and they're like, okay, well, we need to do this and this and this, but I need to talk to your parents.
Right.
Now, I'm not asking your parents for permission, but I'm obliged to at least tell them first. But if I, as the doctor, feel like it's medically necessary for me to do this, again, I'm on the line. I'm close to the line of it needs to have my permission. But for the specific you're putting together here is why it's like, okay.
I mean, I'm doing an extreme thing,
right? And I know, and I could see why
on what most would consider neglect,
right? And I could see why that's an arguable stance for the permission side of this conversation,
right?
But not for the knowledge, because, but again, like
that's what I'm saying. That I think there's like,
but I think if you had in the current system, if you had a kid show up at a walk-in clinic that says, "Hey, I just feel terrible. I haven't blah blah blah. Can you please help me?" And the doctor's like, "Okay, well, who are your parents? What's going on here?" I think in the current system, I think police are notified in that process. If a kid comes in and says, like, I haven't seen a doctor in 12 years because my parents don't let me, and others and that's and whatnot. I think the at least perception of some sort of abuse or neglect is already there, and I think that I would assume that walk-in clinics can be like, okay, kid, you stay here. I'm gonna call your parents, and especially when you get on the phone with the parents are like, he's where? He's doing what? No, I'll be right there. I'm gonna come get him. He's not allowed to do that.
Right. But obviously, more often than not, I mean, even just like with a regular doctor's visit, they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna prescribe you this. That doesn't mean the kid can fill that prescription. You're not gonna have the money to like go to the pharmacy and actually have that shit done. So like, hey, you've got an infection. We're prescribing antibiotics.
Right.
They're not treating them right then and there. They're saying, hey, we've diagnosed you as having sinus infection, whatever. Some kind of infection.
Sure.
In this example of just prescribing antibiotics or whatever.
Okay.
I said, and in that case, I would, like I said, they're not going to inject them with, penicillin or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll be like, hey, you have a sinus infection. Here's a prescription for antibiotic.
Can he go over to the pharmacy to pick it up if he has the money? Or she? We just keep gendering this kid.
I mean, in that case, I would assume that. I mean, I don't know if there's any laws against it, but assuming if they have the money,
if it's behind the counter at the pharmacy,
they
it's
have
a controlled substance
right.
by law. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. I would think if it was legal, that then the pharmacist could dispense that medication to them if it was prescribed by a doctor.
Right.
And it can be paid for, essentially. They're going to be like, I think we've checked all the boxes.
Sure.
If it is legal, because we don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I would be upset as a parent. Because, what my kid doesn't know when he goes in to a doctor's visit? What to put on that paperwork.
Right.
Previous surgeries, allergies, all that kind of stuff. Like my youngest, for example, is pretty allergic to penicillin. So he shows up at a doctor's office at 12, whether I'm a shitbag parent or not and don't take care of him, which I guess I wouldn't know he's allergic and tell the doctor he's allergic if I was that person. But, that doctor says, yeah, you got a pretty bad infection. You allergic to anything? I don't know. Like penicillin's the one. That's the go-to. That's the generic.
Right.
And so he goes and somehow gets it from the pharmacy, and he would take penicillin and he would just turn into one giant single red rash if he took an ingestible penicillin. We learned that the hard way. But either way, I stand by my original statement. I don't think there's exemptions. I can certainly see exceptions to some of the ideas, especially when it comes into an abusive parent situation. And that's the parent's way to hide the abuse from the outside world by not taking him to the doctor or shit like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we find that anyway.
Has to be seen and proven, basically.
Right. And it sucks.
And that's how most stay out of it. They just don't take them.
Right. And it sucks. And that does just plain suck.
Yeah.
But I don't know that, I don't know that that at least at my minimum of parent knowledge would change that. I think it would, if anything, it would probably reinforce that. It would make it clear that parent's like, go, get him the fuck out of there. He's not allowed to do that. It's like, he's clearly sick. He clearly needs some help. What are you doing to help him? None of your fucking business. I'm the dad. Okay, friend, I'm going to call, child services out here. You guys can figure it out because this doesn't seem right to me. I would think that would be a doctor move if you were a doctor in that situation.
Should the state have that option?
What's that?
To tell you how to parent your child?
I mean, it's a tough one. That one I'll go on your case-by-case conversation. I think it's a tough one. And again, it's still a tough one because there are shitty people out there that are going to use the blindness of the state to hide it. But, I mean, I can understand. I can get behind the premise of some people having a religious aversion to certain things and the state not having the right to supersede your religious aversions. And it gets murky and it gets weird and it gets gross.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's, that's going to happen no matter how we try to break this thing down. Unless we tried it, unless we lived in a real decent civil society where we all actually paid attention and gave a shit about each other, which...
I mean, even outside of religion, if it was just their thought of how they should raise a child.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's thought out, if it's not just I don't fucking care, I don't give a shit. Like if there's a thought out, if there's reason to it, I think there's got to be a really high fucking bar to interfere with that relationship. I would think yes. I'm not exactly sure where it sits. I'd have to explore some examples of possibilities.
I mean, that bar, I assume as it sits now, is at the peril of the child, basically.
I mean, even
at the detriment of the child.
I don't know. I mean, detriment's a squishy word in and of itself. I mean, that's an arguable thing. Like what's the old saying? It's like, hard times makes hard men make soft times make soft men. Repeat.
That's a 100% true adage.
I mean,
or is that just a colloquial saying?
Okay. It is. I guess it's a proverb.
Okay.
Is that the right word? That doesn't make it true. You're right.
Okay.
But I could see a parent believing in that. I mean, I think there's at least known cases of it being true on a regular basis. I don't know.
Can you give me an example?
I mean, I think Tiger Woods is a great example. His dad was a fucking asshole. Have you heard the stories of that kind of shit? Now, Tiger got into golf so far that he started to want it, but for a long time, it was just like he would go, they would go golfing, and he would just like caddy for his dad, and his dad would just make it just like he was just a little running errand boy for his dad going golfing, and then he might get to swing like 3 clubs all day, but then it was just labor around his dad, and his dad's golfing, and his dad there's some quotes out of Tiger Woods of some shitty stuff his dad said to him.
Oh. And you still want to cite this as an example of a good, of something that, I mean, even in his adult looking back, thought that was a shitty way.
I think Tiger. I think in the same interviews where he talks about it, Tiger talks about how I wouldn't have become the golfer that I became without it. I think Tiger looks back on it.
That's not necessarily a praise.
Tiger looks back on it as part of why he became as good as he was. He's physically incapable.
I could see that being a fact of the matter just by simply practice makes, I wouldn't say perfect, but I mean, you're drilling something into someone, you practice something so long.
They're going to be good at it.
And you're saying what's like 10,000 hours of something become a
master.
Become a master at something. So, I mean, you're going to have to put in the time to be
good
at something.
No, sure. And
just because your parents started you on at an early level.
We could argue on whether that was a net positive for Tiger as a human being or not.
Right.
He certainly is, I don't know, like top 20 wealthiest athletes ever to roam the earth. Maybe not 20. He's maybe a little bit further down some soccer players in Europe, but top 100 wealthiest. Actually, I think he was like top 5 for a little while. In annual salaries between all his different stuff.
Yeah, again, tournaments pay a lot of money, and he had a lot of fucking...
Right. And then we can get in the argument about what is actual success as a human being in X, Y, and Z, which I guess you could say, no, that he's not a successful human being, I guess. And so he can credit his dad with making him who he is today, but what I argue that he is not successful. We could make that, I guess, argument in this conversation too.
Yeah.
Because it's all squishy, and that's part of the problem, and that's why... trying to put some blanket, the state has a right to intervene with the way you raise your child gets wonky because, again, it goes to the same thing I argue about with schools and other stuff all the time. It's like, well, okay, I can see why you think that is those are the markers for success or the markers for victory in a certain task or whatever, but that's not how I see it. And I can be just as right as you are. It's just a difference of opinion on what success is in a certain situation. So, like, for example, I've got this Hollerpalooza, Hollerfest. We're still working on the name. It never come up. April 13th, Happy Holler, Soapbox Derby, Street Fair, outdoor festival concert all day long. check it out. If you're into making derby cars and you want to run a Soapbox derby car with us, the rules and stuff will be up on the new website I'm building for that thing. Hopefully early next week. The rules and application and all that kind of stuff are becoming soon. Anyway, so this thing is a group effort. I've talked about, like, we have a loosely formed business owners group of Happy Holler. There's about 7-8 of us down there that have different businesses that we do in our things, and we all have mutual want to grow Happy Holler and get more people coming down and making Happy Holler a nightlife spot. Like my goal in the group of ownership, as well as the Hollerpalooza or Hollerfest or whatever we're calling it, my goal in this thing is to put the Holler on the map. My goal is that we put this big event on, and not dissimilar. Realistically, the model here is Sundown in the City. Before Sundown in the City, as far as an adult nightlife kind of deal, Market Square wasn't that. There were a few bars and restaurants down there, but there wasn't a lot going on down there in the evenings. And the whole point, and the people who created Sundown in the City, the whole point was to get Market Square to be a nightlife entertainment thing again. Or not again, but that's what they were trying to build, and that's what they did. They succeeded. They did a very good job at it.
I can't remember when the stage was built.
I
remember when they did the big remodel,
right?
Like years ago. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like this crazy, weird, like square stone. I want to say like water feature, close to where the water feature is now, on the opposite end from the stage.
I do not recall. I definitely was down there pre-square remodel, because we used to go to that where the REI is now. It used to be a bar that did karaoke. That was our karaoke bar.
Is an REI down there now?
I think it's an REI or an Urban Outfitters.
Urban Outfitters. Okay,
sorry. Bougie ass outdoorsy wear.
All right.
Whichever, they're all the same. Anyway, so we're trying to put this Hollerfest thing together, and as an example of the difference in how what could be success, what we could define success as in the event for different people is, for me, that's it. That's all I want. I want Holler on the map. My goal long term for the Holler is that when your cousin's coming in from out of town and they say, "Hey man, we're coming to Knoxville. What's a cool thing to do?" It's like you go, like right now the answer is you go downtown Market Square, or you go to the Old City. Like that's the nightlife happening. That's, if you want to do nightlife in Knoxville, that's where you go. My goal is that generic answer becomes Market Square downtown, hit up the Old City, or there's a really cool kitschy place, Happy Holler. It's a great place to go check stuff out. Like that's my goal. That's what I want. I want Visit Knoxville to treat us that way. I want the Better Business Bureau to treat us that way. I want the city of Knoxville as an entity to treat us that way. But more importantly, I want Knoxville at large, the residents of the city and county of Knox County, to know the Holler as a cool, different nightlife space than the downtown area and Market Square area, as well as the Old City. Because the Old City is going to get real bougie real fast with all the baseball stuff going in, which is cool. So the kind of the not hole in the wall, not scary, dirty, get murdered maybe nightlife area, but the little bit the one that's got a little bit more character, the nice way to say it. That's what I want the Holler to be. I want it to be the character nightlife, the very niche, specific, neat, cool stuff. That's my goal. Now, a couple of the other people that I'm trying to put this thing together with, their goal is to have a huge day and make a bunch of money on the day. Now, don't get me wrong. I intend and want to make money on the day as well. But if we break even financially on the event, then we've already won in my goal. But I know other players that I'm working with in the businesses that are down there are going to consider it. If they break even, it's going to be a waste of fucking time, which is going to be a bigger uphill battle for me to repitch it next year because I want to make it an annual thing. And it's like, yeah, we did it, but we spent 15, 20 grand on it as a group, and everybody all told brought back in $21,000. So 10 businesses split $1,000 in profit. That's really not worth all the energy and effort you guys put into it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but next weekend's going to be a bigger weekend than it's comparable. The weekend after that's going to be bigger. The weekend after that's going to be bigger. That's what I want out of it. And so my point is that, would me not being solely focused on profits for the day be neglectful or mismanagement of my business?
I mean, aspirationally, I would assume also the goal is to bring in future business.
Right, it's a marketing ploy. Yes, it is a marketing ploy. or get
which you're not
potentially
gonna,
sell our business for more than we spent to build it. But
which you can't really gauge that until months down the line.
Right.
And even then, you can't really.
To
say
be
for
fair,
certain.
absolutely, the long term is the same. The long term is to make money. Period. And full stop. The long term is to make money for all parties involved in this.
Right.
That's the long term. Even the nonprofit that we brought in, the long term for them is to make money.
But it's going to be hard to say yes or no whether or not this one event brought in more people.
Sure. And it's hard to say
more continued, I guess, people.
Right. Over time, it's harder and harder to say why these people found us and are spending money with us. But again,
give out tokens
on the specific of the day, of the point of the thing, of the energy and effort going into it. The different entities involved have different specific goals on the day. Mine is more broad. Some of the others is more narrow, and that's okay because we have different goals. But the question is mine? Is the way I'm raising my business neglectful or harmful or should somebody step in and stop me from doing these things because the standard rule isn't what I'm applying to? If we're going to try to use the parallel to go back to the parenting thing, I raise my kids different than you do. You don't understand it? That's okay. You don't have to understand it. Maybe me be doing break even for the first 5 years of the business all of a sudden explodes into a super profitable business from year 6 to 25. That's part of my strategy. I don't know. But who are you to say that my strategy is the wrong strategy in my business or my parenting?
I don't know if I can make the same comparable, but I kind of get what you're saying.
So, anyway, that's that part of things. Mr. McKenzie, Sam McKenzie, and some other Democrat from the state house is trying to get Governor Lee to fire his education secretary. Heard this story?
No.
Pretty fascinating. Apparently, somewhere deep in the state constitution, there's a very specific and explicit qualifications to be the head of the state of Tennessee Department of Education. And those include...
Penny Schwinn?
No. Schwinn's gone. It's the new lady that everybody hates right now.
Oh.
That everybody's complaining about.
Schwinn was the only one that I knew.
Yeah. Anyway, so this new appointee... Anyway, there's like 3 factors that they say you have to have, and like one's kind of like really vague and kind of like, whatever. But the third one is the clearest and the easiest one. It's like you have to be qualified, and you have to be like legally capable of teaching at the highest level of the schools you oversee. Right, and so if you're the Department of Education in the state of Tennessee, 12th grade, you have to have the ability to teach a 12th grade to teach K through 12. As far as like licensure and shit like that.
Right.
She don't have it.
She have like pre-K qualifications? Because I would think it's essentially, like you said, like K through 12.
She's been, apparently like the history was she was in Texas when Bush was governor of Texas and was like in his gubernatorial cabinet of education and stuff like that. And she's been in and around the Bush family administratively, educationally, and when Bush was president, she came up and was doing stuff in the federal board of education or the federal Department of Education, stuff like that. She was his secretary to the Department of whatever. And then since Bush left office, she's kind of been floating around. But like, she has no license to teach. She's not legally capable of teaching in the state of Tennessee or any state for that matter, as far as anybody knows. But it is clearly defined in the state of Tennessee that you have to be a licensed teacher to the highest level of school that you oversee.
Yeah.
And she's not. And apparently Department of Ed's reply was, meh. Because there's no mechanism. It's fucking stupid.
What part of it's fucking stupid?
There's no mechanism. Like, it's clearly stated, but the governor would have to fire her. She would have to quit. Or like some lawsuit.
I would think the mechanism is we already have this on the books as to be in this position. I would think that would nullify the ability for her to be in that position.
The only mechanism that I can see that would be in place that could actually get this lady out of this spot would be that McKenzie and the other Democrats file a lawsuit against, so it'd be, McKenzie blah, 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 versus, I guess it would have to be against Governor Lee.
It wouldn't be just directly against the Tennessee Department of Education?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but that's the only way I could see. That's the only way I could see that there's any solve here. That it would have to be a lawsuit filed that would go to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court would have to rule and say, it is clearly defined here. You're correct that she cannot hold this job. Miss whatever the fuck your name is, you're fired.
Right.
And they would have to fire in lieu of Governor Lee. But that's the only mechanism in play here. Where you and I, if we were to break a law that is clearly written in the statute, the police come in and take care of that. And then the district attorney does the actual court part of it. But we get arrested. District attorney files charges, and we go through the process. But there's no district attorney in this situation. There's no police in this situation.
It'd be the attorney general for the state.
Right. Who's not apt to go after Governor Lee or his appointees.
I mean, the Department of Department of Education. I mean, you said they just said meh.
Yeah, no, she's fine. I mean, that was as far as I understand, that was the quote that was given when at media request.
What quote?
It was no, it's fine. Like, it was a very, very nonchalant disregard of the.
Like, we see no issues.
Yeah. And it's like, well, no, she clearly isn't qualified to teach a single grade in Tennessee schools. By law, she can't be this person.
All right.
But again, if nobody's going to push it, and I guess McKenzie and them could try the lawsuit way. But then it's a politics game, which is a whole other animal. Because, like, I mean, for McKenzie, it's a win. He'll keep his seat anyway. It's not like he's in any danger of losing his seat. I mean, Gloria could kind of spearhead it because she's still technically a House member. And that might, if Gloria spearheaded it, that might give her a little bit more, buzz and clout statewide. That could give her a little more attention, a little bit more free press on her.
I mean, how new is this? I think she would have jumped on it.
Yeah, I was surprised she wasn't on it already. But it was this week.
Okay.
I tried to text her about it. It's like, you getting on this, getting rid of the Board of Ed lady? I haven't tried to text her. She's ghosted me the last 3 or 4 times we've tried to reach out to her. So
yeah.
I mean, I get it. She's busy going on the Today Show and whatnot. I ain't mad about it. I'm a little mad about it. I mean, that was her thing, though. Like, that was, like, kind of her saving grace is that, like,
she was reachable. Despite
all the bullshit, she was always, right, she was always accessible. She was always a we person.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we person. And, like, especially, I honestly, and, like, I was talking about this with Becky, and I was telling you about this with Becky last week. Like, Becky Massey's is the best office I deal with. Now, I think part of why Gloria's is not the best office I deal with is because she has a closet in the hallway somewhere and doesn't have a staff. But
I am my staff.
But like, I'll be honest, like, especially with this hemp law thing that I've gone over a gajillion times on the show. But when I was real, like, animated about trying to figure out how to get this thing set up right, and I was getting the runaround from revenue and agriculture, I called a bunch of different offices. I called Massey's office. I called Lane Davis's office. I called Gloria's office. Like, I think I started with Gloria because I figured Gloria would be easier because Gloria's Pope Prod anyway, so she would probably push more the direction I wanted her to. But I got nothing back, like no reply. I don't even think I got a text message saying, I'll see what I can figure out, or nothing. I don't even think I got 3 blinking dots at any point.
Right. And
so I don't know. Again, like, I acknowledge her platform has risen, and there's probably more people bothering her more often.
Yeah.
And technically I'm not a constituent, so I guess I can't blame her. But I don't know. Again, that goes to the problem that, like, going back to that Massey conversation last week, it's like, it's not worth talking to your rep about some of these bills that are going on. The only thing that matters is who's on the subcommittee and who wrote the bill in the first place, especially on the Senate side.
Yeah.
Because there's only 32 senators. You only have to get, depending on the committee, most bills end up going through 2 or 3 subcommittees. If it clears subcommittee, you already have enough votes for it to pass on the floor. Because you only need 16, 17 votes for it to pass on the floor. And if you have a 7-person subcommittee and a 9-person subcommittee, and it passes, 5-7 or whatever between those 2 committees, you already have 12, 13 votes of the 16, 17 you need for it to pass on the floor.
Right.
You only need a couple other people, not to mention the person who introduces the bill may or may not be in one of the subcommittees, so that's a +1 already. But apparently, the judicial subcommittee is 11 members, so that's a minimum of 6 or 7. So depending, because she was talking about, she got her medical through the Senate last year, but couldn't get a House co-sponsor. She also said one of the funniest things I've heard, and it seems totally accurate, because I started to go at her, I was like, what's the deal with all the rules stuff? And I was like, oh wait, I'm sorry, that's the other House. The House is the one with all these weird ass rules and stuff like that. And she said, the going phrase is the Senate is the dottery old folks, and the House is a bunch of unruly children. There's something of that nature. I'm misquoting her for sure. Go check that episode. And you can take the quote out of her mouth. But she kind of giggled as she said it, and it's well, I can kind of see that looking at you sitting here versus the House members I've had in this room, just an age difference, but also you don't hear about the Senate on the news often.
True.
You do not hear about the Tennessee House Senate or the Tennessee State Senate on the news nearly as often. I was looking, I'm still trying to look through here. I didn't see. I don't see where that Zachary bill we were talking about earlier has a Senate
companion bill or whatever.
Right, has a Senate companion. I'm sure he can get it, but
hasn't been introduced or whatever.
Yeah, and it's got to be there somewhere pretty soon, or it's not going to happen. I think if it's not on, if there's not a bill if there's not a bill pending of some way, shape, or form by Tuesday of this coming week, it will not be in this session.
Huh.
There's a cutoff.
You have to have it passed off in both houses?
It has to be,
or at least,
yes,
I guess,
yeah.
Submitted.
Yeah. So, if, for example, I don't know for sure. I think this is right, but I don't know 100%. But pretty sure that, this Zachary bill, for example, if he doesn't get a senator to get it into the Senate side of the docket by Tuesday or Wednesday, because I think it's the 1st of February, is their cutoff. If he doesn't have that in there, if there's not a Senate version of it in the Senate, it's dead. I mean, the House could still do all their process on it if they want to, but there will never be a Senate companion, and it will never go to the governor's desk. It doesn't kill it per se; it just kills it functionally. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But at the same time, I would like to think that I don't think he would have taken it this far if there wasn't the possibility of a senator picking it up.
I don't think so. No. Do you not? I would think that at least in his head, this is an election issue for him. I couldn't imagine it's not. He is going to. I can't.
Think he's on the cycle this coming year.
Everybody in the House is this year.
Okay.
The House is 2-year term period. End of story. Every even year, the whole House flips. Yeah. And so, there's no way it's not an election issue for him. He doesn't think it is.
I don't know. I don't know if this is going to pick up enough traction to really.
But he can say it.
Withstand. They're going to remit. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But look, I mean, I don't know how. All the districts are about the same size or whatever. But House District 89, who has voted for him, I think this is his 4th or 5th term now. I mean, they voted for him repeatedly.
So what does he have to worry about?
Only a couple thousand people bother showing up, and he has to make sure that those couple thousand people that voted for him last time, because he promised he would do X, Y, or Z for them, see him doing these things. And I would bet you that there's a good chunk of people that want to see this out of his district, because that's the only way he's winning elections. I can't imagine it being any other way, because this isn't a new stance for him.
But he can't tout this as a win if, like you said, it doesn't even make it to the floor.
I mean, but it wouldn't even be a win. But fucking, I mean,
how's it?
This article is already his win. He doesn't need it to fucking go anywhere. You think anybody's going to listen when Amanda Collins or that?
You think anybody's going to remember
who's
this?
Who's my nemesis?
6-7 months from now.
I mean, okay. One, it's District 89. The Republican's going to win pretty much anyway. What is my guy's name? I forgot his name.
Well, and again, then what does he have to worry about?
He's got a Republican primary, I believe. Let me pull up the election. Let me pull up the ballot real quick.
Then if he's going to worry about not being active enough or not getting things passed.
It's not getting things passed. It's the social justice game that he's playing. He needs to be in the news, actively being seen as. He doesn't have to do shit. He just needs people seeing him doing the things that are on these social issues like abortion.
So you don't worry that he would be seen as ineffective?
No, because nobody pays attention to the end anyway. I mean, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
What is this? No delegates.
No, I just saw his name.
Where?
At the bottom page. Yeah, right there at the bottom. Yeah, Zachary. Yeah, right there.
Oh, he's an uncommitted delegate for Ron DeSantis.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I just saw his name.
A list of local candidates. Is that the one? There we go. Oh, this only has the Knox County portion of it, not the state one. Fuck. Where do I get that?
Sample ballots?
That was what I just pulled up as the sample Republican ballot.
Oh, okay.
But it's only the local part of the primaries. It would be the TN 2024. Let's see what Ballotopia has. This place is always weird. Yeah, no, I'm not giving you that shit. State executive, state legislative elections. There we go.
Please enter your address.
I'm not putting my email address in. Suck it.
To proceed.
Boop, 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 boop. It's either a bad link or...
Trifectas.
Expand by state. Tennessee. Senate is 27 and 6. What the fuck? All right, you're worthless. Yeah, you're worthless. I don't even want to fucking deal with you anymore. Anyway, I don't know. I thought I saw he had a primary. Anyway, we'll figure it out later. I don't think. I mean, yeah, or he's a true believer in it. That this is like he truly wants to do these things. That's really the only two options at play. It's either this sells well for him politically, or he actually truly, to his core, believes these things. If you're listening, Zachary, or anybody who knows Zachary, like personally, can get me in touch. I'd love to have you on the show, friend. I know my stage isn't big enough for your fucking ego, but I'd love to do it anyway. It's not. I mean, I get it. He doesn't talk to fucking kids like me. Like, not kids. I'm probably older than he is. But I'm just a fucking joke to him, and I get it. If I were him, I'd look at me and I'd not see any value. What good am I going to do him?
Yeah.
You know, we don't have an audience big enough to make a difference to his election cycle. I mean, hell, the audience we have, I have more Democrats probably. As far as I can tell, I have more Democrats that listen to us than Republicans.
Really?
Which is funny because I don't know. I'm certainly not a Democrat. But I don't know. But yeah. So anyway,
that's just Matt spreading the love.
No, I think it's just I think in Knox County, if you're a Democrat in Knox County, there's only two types of Democrats in Knox County: reasonable human beings who are just not comfortable with how far right Knox County is going, or like more crazy leftists. And I think there's a good chunk. And I think let me rephrase that. I think of the two parties, if we're going to stay in the two-party animal system, I think that just because of the historical weight that the right has, the right is more stratified as far as there's center right, center right, right, center right. Like there's like 15 different levels of rightness, where the left of Knoxville is either cuckoo crazy left or just left of that center divide that all the right is. And it's usually on very specific. Like I would say for Knoxville Democrats, it's very specific, short list, single issue kind of stuff. Abortion being a big one. I think if you vote Democrat in Knox County, I think it's abortion's a big issue to you. I think schools are a big issue to you, even though I don't really understand the Democrats' platform on schools any better than the Republicans. And I think I think and then I think it starts that I think those are the two major actual policy issues of left-leaning people in Knoxville, and then everything else starts leaning into the social woke whatever bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, you hear a lot more of moderate Republicans, but you never really hear the term a moderate Democrat.
Liberal. Moderate liberal, you'll hear that one a lot. I've heard that one plenty. You just don't hear them.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah, well, I think it's a branding thing that they do. I think the Democrats are better at because the Democrats have like progressive, which is really just like progressive, like it's progressive Democrats, but it's shortened into just they're progressives,
right?
And then you have just run of the mill old school Democrats or old school liberals. Like Bill Maher considers himself like an old school liberal. But like new school liberal is a little bit more somewhere between progressive and old school liberal. I think the left names differently, where you get into like right and alt right and extreme right, and then Tea Party right or whatever.
Yeah,
like the right's not as good at naming their subdivisions of rightness.
I would say more often than not, it's the opposite side that then labels the other side. As this or that,
right? And I think especially locally, since you have
it's not really self-described.
But I think it's because locally you have such a prevalence of Republicans that, like, I mean, fucking Randy does it all the time. Love you, Randy, but like, if you think that maybe they should have assaulted a little bit more of the streets, you're a fucking socialist, and they're all fucking socialist Democrat crazies. Like, there is no like at least for the what is becoming the new right, there is us, and anybody left of us is a fucking woke progressive socialist.
Yeah.
And so we don't subdivide into these little. There is nobody over there that isn't the evil that we're trying to fight, and I think that's a distinction as well. That's that for the right, for the mainstream right now, it is us against the world, and everybody else is a fucking socialist, communist, woke, hipster, crazy person, which I don't think does anybody any good.
I still don't get the whole like Chi-Com thing.
Chi-Com?
Chinese communists.
Is that a party here?
It's what always gets thrown around with any kind of like liberal Democrat, like progressives. They're also kind of lumped in with like Chinese communists. I mean, it just kind of goes back into the whole like left being socialist communist.
Right.
It's one thing I've never understood. It's just anything on the left is like, oh, you're in with the CCP.
I did see a really good funny joke about people who like hate socialism kind of thing, and it's like it was like a picture of like how the interstate they get like 5 plow trucks and they all kind of go in a line together. Mm-hmm. It's like the one on the left pushes towards the one, and then they push all the way off till they get all the way to the side of the road. It's like, look out for the socialist snow train or something like that. And it was just kind of making fun of like, that is a social service. That is what it is. It's like literally accurate statement or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's well played. I get it. And that brings me back to another thing.
Never seen it in America, but I actually just happened to have caught some videos of it going on in Canada of like a big, huge like snowplow train.
Convoy.
Like you were saying, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just
I realized that they have like trailers behind some of the trucks that are like offset, that are I'm assuming are just kind of like weighted down, that are also like connected to a plow,
a little scraper or something. I don't know.
I have never seen that.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know.
I'm like basically going down like a 5-lane like highway.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot this week, and I think this snowstorm, it has the potential. I've got to work it out. I'm still trying to figure out the semantics of the whole thing, but I think it has the potential to be a very clear, like, analogy to normal people's interaction with government. Because I think it's a good way. That's like a lot of times we don't pay that much attention to how much actually gets done, until it doesn't get done. Of people who have been on streets that never saw a plow and stuff like that. And I think I'm still working it out in my head because I think it's interesting.
I think it could go both ways.
I mean, I think I still like. We were talking about it last week. We were on the show last week. I was praising. I was really proud. I was really impressed with how well Knox County did in keeping the major thoroughfares open and clean and all that kind of stuff. And if you could get out of your driveway and get out of your neighborhood, you probably could take care of whatever you need to take care of.
If you can get to a semi-major street,
right.
It was all right.
And I was like, okay, and it's like I understand that my neighborhood is definitely not on the list of those or whatever, but like, come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I still never saw a truck coming down my street. I was like, okay. Like, I get it. And Jesse made a good point when I was asking him about it, because he was, for county at least, in road miles, and this is a weird term because it's not miles of road, it's miles of lanes of road. So, like, if it's a mile of a two-way road, that's 2 miles in lane miles,
right,
or whatever.
Which, I mean, to them, they're clearing one side, and then they're clearing the other side.
Punch that microphone. Tell what's up. And so, like, in what Knox County considers, outside of city limits, what Knox County considers their main arteries and secondary whatever, like the stuff that's on their first tier of road cleanup,
right,
there are 700 and something miles of coverage needed. And so then everything past that's an additional like 2,400 miles. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Like 3 or 4 times more roads when you get into neighborhoods and country back roads and blah, 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 and all that stuff. That's across all of Knox County. Right. Not including the city limits. I don't know if I'm sure Farragut doesn't have their own. I'm sure Knox County was covering that because Farragut's a bitch.
Right.
But, it's like, okay. Like, I get it. It took everything you had with all 25 trucks or whatever we have locally. It took all those trucks running nonstop constantly to keep that 750 miles or so functional for the first 4 or 5 days of this thing. 100%. Agreed.
I wonder if TDOT has their own trucks.
They do. Anything that you saw on the interstate was TDOT. Anything you saw in the city was city. Like, I don't know exactly where the overlaps. They'd have some overlap or whatever.
Right.
And then the fun thing I learned is Knox County Schools has their own fleet of trucks that they didn't do shit with, which is another whole set of ridiculousness, which I'm upset about, but that's a whole subject. We'll get to that here in a second. But it's like, okay, all right, I get it. 750 miles, 3 or 4 days straight. That's all you're doing. That makes sense. But but past that, as far as I could tell, it was literally whoever complained the most.
I heard about that there was like a 411 or 311 that you could call.
And it was just, then they would put you down on the list and they would prioritize it literally by annoyance.
Right.
And it's like, okay, come on. Like I was talking to Jennifer Owen about it. I was like, maybe the snow plan should go major thoroughfares, interstates, hospitals. Hospital access is important. I get that. That's tier 1.
Yeah.
And then maybe tier 2 and the bottom of tier 2, but maybe at the bottom of tier 2 is started at schools and spread out. Maybe around access to schools. Because again, I think one of the things that just kind of drives me nuts about this, like you had this whole warming center thing and stuff like that. It's like we've got these big, nice buildings. If they could be accessible, they don't have to be there for students. We could use them for other stuff if we need to do. If it was like an emergency, this was an emergency. This was a natural disaster that we just went through.
What?
This was a natural disaster that we just went through.
What? How so?
Because the weather came in and shut us down functionally for a week. That is a natural. Like it wasn't like a oil spill or some other random accident, industrial issue. It was literally Mother Nature said, "Fuck you guys, you're done," and we said, "Yes, ma'am," because we don't have a choice. I don't know how. Like is that not a natural disaster to you? Spend like $500,000 trying to just keep the roads clear enough for the ambulances and fire trucks to get around.
I mean, I don't think I would consider it a natural.
I mean, I think technically it is definitely.
I mean, generally, those are more declared to then bring in federal help and federal funds.
I mean, okay. I mean, but I think technically, if the city or county wanted to try to play that game, they might be able to do it. But whatever. But I think by definition, yes, this was a natural disaster. Nature made it impossible to be alive. And I'm sure we have a death count. I haven't heard it yet. It's probably not significant.
I haven't heard anything locally. I think at least
like I said, last
one
week,
or two.
We had one frozen lady last week that we talked about that has been confirmed since. When we talked about it last week, it was not confirmed that it was a weather like cold related, but that has come out as confirmed that she did freeze to death in the one night.
But statewide was at least 30 or 40.
Yeah. Either way, it's a natural disaster. Definitionally, it is a natural disaster that happened to us. Now, it's a more manageable natural disaster than a hurricane like Katrina was. It's a more manageable natural disaster than an earthquake in Southern California. But it's a natural disaster nonetheless. And I would think that, much like in the Katrina situation where you took public buildings like the Superdome and opened them up as a refuge for people to find a fucking safe place to be for a period of time until we figured out what to do, I would think maybe starting with schools would be a good way to do that. Not necessarily because I'm selfish and I want my kids to get back in school yesterday because it's so fucking annoying living in my house with my kids all the goddamn time, which it is. But I love them. But that was a hard week, I'm not going to lie. Stuck in the house with the kids all day. But I would think that just to make, as far as you're digging out, as you're making access available, making the schools be a point of access for the local and growing from there. I think that makes sense to me. And then as a byproduct, you should make these schools more. You should get the schools open sooner. But
what good does it do to clear roads surrounding a particular school?
I mean, I think
school districts expand well beyond that. Well, we've talked about before about just weird and crazy.
They are weird and crazy
school district.
But
lines.
I would think that if you said okay, and I would even start at the high schools and work my way down. I would think that if we got in a situation where it's like, okay, this is a big fucking deal. Like, this is a big fucking deal, and, like, this is Katrina-level destruction, whatever the weather event was. But we'll just stick with snow because that's around. Like, this is Katrina-level shit. This is, like, we've got people stuck in their houses. They've been stuck in there for days. They're starving to death kind of shit. We've got to figure out how to get people out, get people moved, get people into a safe location that has power, it has access to food and water, and blah, 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 blah. I would think publicly owned buildings that are pretty stable and secure buildings, which schools are, would be a good starting point for a situation like that. And so by putting the schools on a higher priority in your snow plan, that if somehow, like if it didn't get warm and rain on Thursday night, Friday morning, if it stayed cold and snowed, and that rain we had Thursday night, Friday morning wasn't rain, but more snow. And then we're continually trying to dig out of this thing because we're not ready for it. It's Knoxville. This is a 30-year weather event. We're not used to this. We're not ready for this in a long-term format like I was in Wisconsin. This is no big deal. This is whatever in Wisconsin. Like, we wouldn't have missed a minute of school for this mess or the wind thing on Friday before, but that's a separate thing. I'm just saying that just makes sense to me as a oh shit, this is a bigger deal than we thought it was. Hey, public, if you need help, if you're stuck, if you lost power, if we lose power for a little bit or whatever, we have basically warming centers or just like disaster relief centers that we're going to start working into the school systems and into the schools, starting with the high schools. And if you do that as part of your road plan, I think that would be an effective, logical way to go about it. That's all I'm getting at.
All right, but where would you stop? Let's say you've got four subdivisions not too far from a school.
You go
up to the subdivision, or do you plow that whole subdivision?
No, you go to. I think you go to the high school, and then you don't go into neighborhoods until the neighborhoods would be the absolute.
You plow the high school parking lot.
Knox County Schools can do that. They have their own trucks, but they need the county and city trucks to clear the way so they can get to the schools to plow them.
Okay.
But the Knox County Schools has their own plows and trucks.
Which you said they didn't use, apparently.
Right. Because they couldn't get there, but they didn't know when school was opening, so they didn't bother. Like, I was really confused about it. Jennifer Owen was literally shoveling Fulton High School's back driveway on Wednesday night. Like, she was shoveling it. And I was like, where's your trucks? She's like, I have no idea. And then it started pouring, and I was like, I texted her, I was like, why are you shoveling? It's supposed to rain tonight. And it's like, it's going to rain. It's going to melt it all. Like, the rain's going to wash it all away before. Doesn't matter how much is still there. That's not true. There's still like 2 feet of snow at Union Jacks.
Yeah.
In a big, dirty, gross-ass pile on the side of the parking lot. Right. But it's there.
I mean, the rain didn't fully melt everything until like 1 or 2 days ago.
Well, I mean, it didn't rain until last night before last.
Yeah.
And then we started 2 hours later. Like, it was that crazy foggy. Thursday morning was weird.
Yeah, it was mainly just all that snow and just cold air. I was driving around through some of it, and I'm like, this looks eerie.
Yeah. Some of that.
But I could tell with like my window down a little bit. I'm like, it got really cold here for a second. I'm like, oh, it's just all that cold air around where that snow was still trying to melt.
Snow piles up. Yeah.
I mean, even a couple days ago, I still saw some yards that I guess were still shady enough to still have a decent bit of
I mean,
snow
this morning, the snowman was still, there was a small pile left of the snowman we built.
All right. I wasn't talking about snowman. I was talking about just like still just on like people's lawns.
Yeah. We lost our gutter. Gutter replaced. That guy was awesome.
Damn.
If anybody needs a gutter guy, hit me up. I got a dude. Like, that was awesome. Like, I called him. He came out. He's like, yeah. It's like, tomorrow morning at 9? Nah, that's too early. I'm not going to be up yet. He's like, 2:30? It's like, okay, cool. Nice. Came by. They were here for like 35 minutes, maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's that. I was totally fascinated by the machine. The kids didn't give a shit. I was like, look at it. It's cool. You have flat metal in a roll that is now all of a sudden a perfect gutter.
All right.
Cut to exactly the size of the house. They're going to take that. They're going to duct tape it to the house, put the downspouts on it. Boom, we're done. And it's supposed to rain later tonight, and we get to test our brand new gutter tonight.
Hell yeah.
Because I planned it that way or something.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was the major stuff I want to touch on, I think. Trying to think if I missed anything. That was big stuff. The Zachary bill, the Department of Ed lady who isn't legally qualified by written Tennessee standards to hold the job. Why does Knox County Schools have trucks and snowplows on their? Like, I just don't understand it. Like it's, and I guess what it is, like, what it is to me, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. Why aren't they using them?
They're contracted to just plow, like you said, like just plow the schools.
Right. Which, see, that's one of those, like, that's one of those things as a layperson who pays taxes and doesn't pay attention. It's like, I don't care. Okay. If you have the tool, use the tool when it's appropriate. Right. I don't give a shit.
I mean, it's one of those weird things like that. The county is plowing county roads, but at the same time, I wouldn't fully expect them to go through a school's thoroughfares
I wouldn't either.
And plow all of that too.
But that being said, it's like, okay, well, if we know school's going to be canceled for a couple days, this is state property, for lack of a better word, that is a capable tool to be used on the job that is needed right now. But because it's part of this department, we're just going to leave it in the parking lot. That's what bothers me about it. Like, I don't mind the premise that Knox County Schools has them, because it makes sense. Okay, we had a big storm overnight. The city and county trucks are going to run their thing, you know, and as soon as it's accessible, you go to the schools and clear the lot so that as soon as this storm runs through. But that's just it. As Knox County Schools take on it is like, this is Knox County. The snow's going to be gone, whether we plow it or not, before we let the kids back in school anyway.
Yeah, but they may have just been weighing that.
So why would we go out? Why would we put our trucks out? Why would we put the man hours in? Why would we spend our budget on this thing? Which I acknowledge that is a logical way to go about it.
Right.
Except for, why the fuck did you buy it in the first place then? Like, why did you spend $1? Like, I told one of my school board people I was talking to about it. I was like, why did Knox County Schools spend $1 on a snowplow? I mean, hell, just go to the athletic department and get their, you know, fertilizer spreaders because they have their beautifully manicured fields, and just go spread salt and shit on the parking lots with their Toro, their like, you know, right along Toro fertilizer spreaders. Every athletic department's got that shit. They've got some top of the line.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have done
field
much
equipment
with 8-9 inches of snow.
It absolutely would have done a shitload in those parking lots, because as soon as it got above 25 degrees, like, as I tell the story, I've told the story a couple times now because it's hilarious. All right, so our neighbor at Central is called 00 Wine Bar, organic wines. If you're into that, check them out. Cool, chill place to hang out. But whomever they sent out to salt their sidewalk and their portion of the deck was really narrow-sighted, like had tunnel vision and really big hands, because they just had piles of salt in small sections of their spot. And so it was a couple days later, and it was sitting there, and There's just dry concrete on their sidewalk. Let me back that up. City sidewalk, but they salted it themselves. City didn't do any of the sidewalks. Separate argument conversation there. But like whomever did it just like dumped big gobs everywhere. And so most of their shit was clear, but there were these big piles of salt left. And so I grabbed one of my employees. I was like, hey, come on. Grab a broom. Grab the dustpan. We're going to steal their salt because it's done. It's already done its job. This is just dead salt. Because we didn't have any. Because we, like a lot of people, as soon as it started snowing, be like, somebody go buy some salt. And a couple of people that had a chance to get anywhere near any place, they were all sold out.
All right.
And so I was like, we're going to steal their salt because it's dead salt. It's not doing anything. And like literally, I took a push broom and pushed it down the hill and pushed it on top of our 2-3 inch thick ice block that was our sidewalk portion. And then went inside, took care of some shit. Like 30 minutes later, there were like 1 inch diameter holes for each grain of salt. Maybe a couple of grains of salt or whatever that were piled together. There were big holes in the ice already. And it was 35 degrees outside. But that's how much faster the salt helps melt that ice. So my point is if the Knox County schools had gone out there and thrown salt in the parking lots while it was snowing, right after it stopped snowing, because they don't have a bunch of traffic sitting there compacting that shit down. Unless there's kids going and doing donuts in the parking lot.
Salt helps on ice, not snow.
It melts snow, period. It melts the snow faster. And so it would have melted that snow day of. Well, no, because it stayed super ass cold. It would have just sat there. But as soon as it got above 25 degrees, it would have melted that snow lightning fast. And they wouldn't have had to done much a lot clearing anyway.
What's your opinion?
I'm pretty sure it's a fact, but...
I mean, I've seen many a snow, at least recently, salt that was put down onto snow. And yeah, I saw a bunch of like little tiny holes that went down through the snow. But it was still ice and treacherous to walk on.
Sure. It's not like instantaneous.
It made it a little bit better.
Right. But it would have made it a little bit better. It could have been... whatever. Anyway.
I'm just saying fucking throwing throwing salt down on 8-9 inches of snow isn't just going to like, oh, it's gone.
Right. But
that's all they had to do was just throw some salt on it. And that shit would have just gone away.
In the timeline we were discussing, Jennifer Owen would have been out there shoveling ice off the sidewalk if they had done it 3 days prior. In the timeline we're discussing.
No, I don't think so.
In the timeline we're discussing, I think it would have made it would have made a little bit of a difference, realistically. I guess. I don't know. I don't fucking know. What are we talking about? Why does Knox County Schools have plow trucks? That's what I don't understand. My joke was making the athletic department spread salt.
Right.
Like, what's the point? Like, realistically, what's the point? And to
I
me,
agree in this case, like you said, like this was a 30-year event.
But to me, it's like if you have them...
This is where you're supposed to be using this. Like, what other chances have we had to use a plow truck in the parking lot of a school?
But to me, it's like if you have them, and the general policy with the way the school works, you're not going to really use them anyway. But it's like, that's tax dollars spent.
I wonder if they use those vehicles for other stuff.
I mean,
if it's just like a big
the security department
truck that they can then throw a plow onto, or if it's a
they don't have big trucks. They're just little. They're like F-250s. They're pickup trucks, but they have bed inserts that are spreaders. They don't have a ton of them. Jennifer Owen said she's asked for the equipment list.
Yeah,
and I'm curious what the numbers are. They don't have a ton of them, and we have like 90 something schools.
Right.
But I mean, you could do like 2 or 3 schools. You could probably do 10 schools a day if you can get between them.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling somebody, they were like, how come it's the businesses, like, there's a Dairy Queen that's open. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, because they paid to have
private industry.
Yeah. I was like, they paid someone to come do that. I was like, when I worked for
the neighborhood over here paid for somebody to come do their neighborhood because they knew this county wasn't coming.
Right.
Which I was like, okay, cool.
When I worked for a major corporation, I was like, it was pretty much the same company that we contracted to do our general landscaping, but they had those same heavy-duty trucks that they could throw a plow on and throw a spreader on the back, and they would do the whole parking lot.
Well, like a bunch of the landscaping companies I've seen around, it's just guys that have skid steers, and they just use their bucket.
Right.
They just slid their bucket under and dumped it.
This is their slow time anyway, so
they're super stoked about getting some work right now. Right. Absolutely. But Yeah, I just like to me, like I guess to me, like the one thing it's like as a layperson who pays taxes, I don't really care that Knox County Schools owns trucks and plows. I don't really like just fucking use it. If you have the opportunity, use it. Use it on the schools. And what would be crazy, I know, would be just use it in general. Just go out there and help plow roads. Like once you get the major cleared with the big trucks, a pickup truck with a plow can do touch up, can come back through.
That's where it's weird, like liability thing, because that was one thing I was wondering about when I was up in Ohio, like driving, because there's a lot of people that, as a side job, they plow driveways. And I remember, going down the road and seeing someone coming the opposite direction, and I'm like, why don't they just like throw their plow down and do this?
That's because they're not getting paid.
It's a state thing.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't touch it.
It's a little bit more of a liability thing. If they fuck something up or
right, I wouldn't
take
touch
out a mailbox.
I wouldn't touch a public street if I was a private guy doing it, unless
right.
I was getting paid and contracted by.
As I say, that's where
you bring up a really great question because the neighborhood over here, I'm assuming that the road is a county property,
right?
And that if that guy that was doing maybe a better example is I had a guy like 3 houses down that was I walked out one morning and he was out there with a pickaxe. Like in a full-on pickaxe, just whacking at the ice on the street.
I saw that a couple times, yeah.
And it's like, okay, whatever.
That's where I saw it was like neighborhoods that I'm assuming it just kind of like got together and did it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of neighborhoods that did it. Yeah, there's a bunch of neighborhoods that did it. There's a New Sentinel had an article about it. Like there, like a couple of different neighborhoods that did it themselves because the county was never coming. It's like, yeah, the county was never coming. That's true. It's not really the county's fault. They were.
I mainly saw them at like the exit was the one time I saw it.
But
where it's usually like at the bottom of the hill where all that shit had just been like collecting and everyone like braking had just like compacted all that shit down. Right. Where you pretty much needed it.
But I would think that yes, if you, because I mean it's pothole city out there now too. Right. Now that it's cleared, but I would think that if my neighborhood over here with the pickaxe, like, put a hole in the fucking road, and that hole gets worse, and they could prove that was started with his pickaxe. He probably has some liability in that.
Possibly, yeah.
And
how you gonna prove it?
But that's just. I mean, that's the shit. I mean, that's just the shit weird litigious world we live in.
Right.
But again, back to the main point. It's like I don't know. If you're gonna have them, use them. Just use them. You talk about your $600 million budget that you have in Knox County Schools and how you stretch that thing to the very end of its ability, and 90% of it is all staff. That's all you're paying for. And you're bragging about that because you're doing the best you can with the dollars your state will give you for it. Why the fuck do you have a snowplow? Like that part, just it bothers me. Like I get it in the sense it's like, okay, well, we're a big school system. We're we're the second biggest school system in the state.
Really?
Yeah.
We're ahead of Memphis and Nashville.
Nashville, I think we're ahead of. I think Nashville is number one because I think Chattanooga and Bradley County. Is it Bradley County?
No.
I think Memphis and Shelby County are two separate school districts. I think Memphis City has its own set of schools.
Oh, I thought they would have been part of Shelby County proper, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, we used to. There was a long time here that there was Knoxville schools and there was Knox County schools. And Knoxville quit doing, the city abdicated their role as a school system and gave it to the county. Nashville is one single county, one single school system, but I think Shelby and Memphis have separate school systems.
Chattanooga might be Hamilton?
I think you're right. I think Chattanooga and Hamilton are different school systems. And it's just it's a politics thing and why we're the second biggest. It's not. I mean, we're obviously not the second biggest city in population.
Right.
But the idea of it's like, well, you're a big ass school system. Here's a couple of supplies you should have on hand if you ever need them. Snowplows.
Well, it's probably more of the trucks, and then they've got trucks that are capable of.
All right, they have trucks with the thing on the front, and the thing on the front you can put a bunch of different stuff on.
Right.
I get that, but why would you buy the plow? I mean, there's like Home Depot version of it's like $700 a piece. And again, in a $600 million budget, $700 isn't that big a deal.
Yeah. But
when all you do is complain about how little money the school systems have, why would you spend $700 on a fucking snowplow? And more to the point, why would you spend, I don't know, 35 cents a day on storage of a snowplow on school property somewhere.
Why are they paying storage? What?
I mean, they're paying storage. I mean, they pay for there's cost to the property that they're storing stuff on. There's the facilities building. I don't know if they're at the facilities building down there on Central or somewhere else. What do you do with your stuff when you need? Well, like, if you have more stuff than you have space for, what do you do?
But I don't
buy more space.
I don't itemize like what particular thing and then quantify.
No, you okay?
That box of paperwork is now costing me.
Well, you can
$5 a month.
It's a very doable thing that you could do, and I would think the school system would do that. Every square foot of storage is a cost,
but that's something you can cut out.
Sure, it is.
You're renting a space.
You rent a smaller space.
Do you then want to measure the empty space and then look at waste of like how much like empty space?
Why not? Because if you look at it and you go, okay, we have a 10,000 square foot.
To what end?
We have 10.
What end?
What do you mean to what end? We have 10,000 feet of square. We have 10,000 square feet of storage stuff for Knox County schools, which is probably a tiny ass number.
Right. Are we going to then push to?
But we only need 5,000.
Cut that lease, and look for another. Smaller unit.
I don't know that Knox County schools is leasing shit for starters.
Okay, so
I think it's owned property. So yeah, that it's 100% profit of selling a piece of property that we don't need. And we could maybe sell that piece of property and use the money from selling that piece of property.
The entire property isn't empty.
Okay.
You're talking about portions of the property that are empty.
But how much property do you need to do what you need? Do you need the totality of that property? Because it's not the facilities property downtown is not a small property.
Okay. Again, to what end? Because then, like you said, we have a lease. It's something that we own. So are you then, to what end are we going to abdicate taking out a 2,000 square foot facility and looking for a 1,800 square foot facility because we have 200 feet
to the end that you're
not using, and we're putting snowplows
to the end
that are taking up space that we don't use very often.
To the end being that you're not you're not you, and I know this isn't you personally. You are not allowed to complain about the schools not having enough money when you're wasting it. How's that? It's wasted money. If you're going to tell me that
school A, you have 4 classrooms that we have found that for portions of the day are not utilized. We need you to look at
that's completely fucking
moving
different.
To a
apples and oranges.
School.
Apples and oranges, man. Apples and oranges. You don't get to do that's an apples and oranges comparison.
How so?
I'm talking about we have. I don't know exactly what the number is, but for conversation's sake, we have a dozen plow heads for trucks. Yeah. Right, a dozen plow heads for trucks.
Okay,
these are 6 feet, 8 feet wide, 1.5 feet tall. They take probably, I would guess they probably take 20 square feet to store one of them, minimum. We have a dozen of them. When you're looking at rental property, even just for storage rental property anywhere in downtown, and again, I'm guessing that this is at the facilities building down off of Central in Baxter. I don't know if it is or not. But just for storage, anywhere in that neighborhood, you're looking at $100 a square foot in rental, just for a generic, no heat and air, just a roof minimum. That's $100 a square foot we're wasting. Could you sell that entire property and put what you need in a much smaller property and a much cheaper piece of property to boot? Yes, you could. And if you're complaining about not having enough money to pay teachers, if you're complaining about not having enough money to buy a new piece of property to put a new school on because we need more classrooms and more seats for kids, why would you waste $1 on a fucking storing a snowplow and buying it in the first place? Especially that when the 30-year occasion that you might actually need it finally arrives, and you don't bother getting them out and using them anyway. That is why it bothers me. It's wasted money. It just is.
I don't know. It just kind of seems like you're nitpicking at particulars that... I don't see a logical.
I mean,
recourse of like.
I mean, I can go on to the next one being that the school resource officers has like 30 fucking cars. And at least the one that I have here at Rocky Hill has driven their personal vehicle every day, everywhere. I've never seen a Knox County Schools resource officer car at our school. Not to mention why...
I see them driving around every once in a while.
I've seen a handful of them.
It looks like a cop car, but it says Knox County Schools.
Yeah, it looks like a cop car that a kid drew the logo for, yes. 100%.
Don't think it looks that juvenile.
It's pretty bad. Like it looks childish compared to the big boys' cars. I'm not kidding. Anyway,
well, I think it's supposed to be noticeably different than an actual police car, just because it does look.
But it's still the same question. Why? Why do we need that? Especially when we're complaining about not having enough money to hire enough resource officers. Why do they need cars? Unless that's your way to hire them, we're like, well, we can't pay you that much, but we can give you a car. Not that you need the car for anything other than drive to and from the school you're at. Like what?
I mean, there's times where apprehensions are necessitated to where you do need a vehicle to actually...
I don't know that they are legally allowed to transport. They're not legally to leave they can't come off the property to detain you. So I don't think that they could detain you and take you off property.
I'm just guessing that maybe it's a place to detain them before they're taken off property. I don't know.
I just think it's fucking bullshit that they're like I said, my most generous take on it is that it's a way for them to pay without paying. It's part of the benefits package they sell to talk people into taking the job. That's my most generous version of why they want those cars.
See, it's part of it, but I don't know if it's something that even those that do drive those have the ability to take them home.
I don't know that either. But, again, going back to the core of the argument, it's like, is it an idiot thing? No. Then you're not allowed... it's just, you're not... it's the money thing to me. It's like, you can't complain about money when you're wasting it. I need an explanation on why we own snowplows.
Okay. So
I need an explanation on why we own cars.
Anytime you find any kind of waste, there is no complaint whatsoever because we can find... some kind of waste at some point. Like, you can't bitch about this.
Yes, habitual waste. If it's habitual waste, yes. Like you're complaining about money.
Right. Habitual waste. Okay.
Habitual waste. If it's habitual waste, you're not allowed to complain about not having enough money.
Okay.
No, right. If I walk in there and be like, "Oh, this teacher broke a pencil and threw it in the trash," instead of duct taping it back together and using it for the rest of the day, that's a waste of money. You can't complain about money more. No, that's ridiculous. But we're talking about 30, 40. I mean, they're like. Chevy, what's their little sedan?
Malibu?
Yeah. No, it's not a Malibu. It's not even that nice. Some little Chevy, 4-door sedan.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, in today's market, still a $15,000, $20,000 car new.
Most Knox County schools, I've seen are like SUVs.
I mean, hell, you got the kids going, like the Knox County Schools shuttle service, which is their like specialty, like very specific situation. They'll pick up a couple kids because they're right outside a district. There's some weird circumstances that they need. It's like a 1987 Dodge Caravan.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they have an argument to have a reasonable vehicle, but we've got resource officers that have cars that have no point in existing. They have cars, but we have an Astro van driving some special need kids out in the woods because that's where his house is. It's ridiculous. Man, I didn't mean to go on that kind of tear on that particular topic. But I enjoyed it because I'm a heathen. Storm was a record. Yeah, that was it. That is the longest that is the longest that Knoxville has had snow on the ground of that quantity since records began.
I was going to say, I can't. Not as long as I've lived here have we had that much snow that it came down.
Unless you lived prior to 1910, because that's when they started taking records.
I did not live prior to 1910.
Prior to 1910, there was only one time where there were 6 days of 4+ inches of snow remaining on the ground. And we made it to 7.
I thought it looked nice.
That 6 day
the roads being fucked up.
And that 6 day was 96. Not 93. 93 apparently was like 48 hours. And it was gone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wasn't here for that, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I just hear the
moved
reference.
here the summer after. So
I just hear all the
didn't
references
experience.
from you children who can't handle snow. Come from the Great White North. There's nothing. Got nothing. This was nothing.
Right.
I take that back.
I
Very
agree with
sketchy.
a lot of people, and they're like, it's snowing outside. I'm like, that is not snow. That is flurries.
I mean, I'll admit that I drove around a lot in a lot of different places in it. I was the taxi for all my staff. I was driving them to work and all that kind of stuff. But I did happen to find one employee, Anderson County, where it got real sketchy. It got to the point I felt guilty about it. So Friday after we recorded, Saturday, it's like, I'm going to need a ride in and a ride home. I was like, if nobody else will do it, I'll do it. I go up there Saturday, like early afternoon, it's like 2 o'clock. And he's way up on a mountaintop, way up there in Anderson County. And for the most part, it was okay. It was a little sketchy, it was a little rough, a little this, that, the other, whatever. Get up to his house, stop at the end of his driveway where he's standing, gets in the car. Well, me stopping lost the momentum of getting up the hill for the rest of in front of his house. And so, like, I tried to go up that hill, and as soon as I started going, I started spinning. And then I started sliding backwards, apply the brake, and I keep going backwards. So let the brake off and intentionally go backwards with a little bit more direction to it to get back, and then get a little momentum and get up over that hill. And then we get out, and that's fine. So I go through the whole thing, and I get out of there, get him to work. And I get back here, and I think I was actually not editing, but blocking together the podcast, making sure it was right, getting it ready for release. And I was sitting here, and I'm like, you know what? I'm an asshole. I texted him, I was like, dude, I'm not taking you home. I was like, I'll clear the bed off here. You can come stay in the guest room. Max was out of town. I was like, we'll go break into Max's house and you can sleep at his place. Call somebody that you know from around here that you can crash at, but I'm not taking you home, man. There's 2 spots on that road that there's no way at midnight I'm going to make it up that hill. Because I couldn't make it up at 3 in the afternoon. I barely made it up at 3 in the afternoon, slept inside the house like it was. It's now midnight. It's 9 degrees, I think, when I got in the car to go pick him up.
Yeah.
I was like, it's going to be like 6 degrees by the time I get up there. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I feel like a dick. He's like, it's cool. Just drop me off at the end of the road. I was like, dude, that's like a mile. He's like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, all right. So I drove him up there, got him to the end of the road. I was like, I'm staying right here. I'm not leaving right here. I don't know what I'm going to do if something happens, but I'm staying right here.
Right.
And I'm going to wait until you get home. And you're going to call me when you get home and say that you made it home. I brought extra gloves. I brought an extra jacket. I brought some flashlights. Whatever you want, take it. And I sat there at the end of his road. 30 minutes later, or whatever. He's like, I'm at the end of the driveway. We're cool. It's like, all right. And like, I was just sitting in the car with the heat on. I was like, it's getting fucking cold out here, and I'm in the car with the heat on. This is ridiculous. Anyway, Austin, move somewhere because that house is bullshit for the 30-year storm. Oh, it was such a mess. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have to be quite on point if my phone will load. Let's see here. We got.
Do I need to do it again, or
no?
You good? All right. Just a little bit of a.
Got Taylor Drift or Beyond Sleigh. Voting open.
Is this one story? Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was.
Yeah, voting.
Tease for 2
voting
different
open to name Minnesota snowplows.
Oh, they've got some fucked up ones in the past. They've done this before.
Really?
I remember hearing some of these stories before.
I mean, that's pretty much the story. I guess there's a. I'm assuming that was the top 2 names.
No, jump in it. I bet you they talk about how, like, historically they've done it. Because I want to say I remember a story a couple years ago where they got it named.
Such as Plowy McPlowface and
Plowy McPlowface.
Darth.
What's the date on this story?
Darth Blader.
What's the date?
This was today.
The story was written today or was posted today?
I guess posted today.
Because Plowy McPlowface I remember from a couple of years ago being a thing.
Let's see here. The often icy state, I guess talking about Minnesota, began naming its 800 plows in 2020. And is expected to announce winners of its 2023 to 2024 Name a Snowplow contest early next week. Let's see if there's any other names. We got.
I'm pretty sure Plowy McPlowface was a couple years old. I think it was a winner a couple years ago.
Beyond Slay, Taylor Drift, and Aaron Burr. Sir, let's see here. Oh, Aaron Burr, sir. Guess that was the end of it. Voting continues through Sunday, and people don't need to be Minnesota residents to weigh in. Oh.
Well, all you Chiefs fans out there.
We definitely know in Minnesota how anyone who lives up here knows the challenges of those conditions and the challenges of trying to keep roads safe for folks to travel during the winter.
I mean, I can't explain. Like, I don't even know how to explain the difference growing up in it versus here.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I had my cousin up in Ohio, which is get like the crazy lake effect snows. Like, made the joke that like they didn't call off schools unless like the superintendent couldn't see the school, like, 4 feet away from the school.
Like, we never got out for snow, but like the story I always like to tell on how much different it is there. So the Blue Demon, 93 Nissan Sentra, not a champion of any sort of anything in the car. Like, it was, I think that thing was brand new in 93 when my dad bought it. It was like $6,500. Brand ass new. 4-cylinder, manual transmission, front wheel drive. There is nothing about this car that says anything but I'm going to work and back in it, right? We had a hockey tournament in, I do not remember the city in Wisconsin, but it was literally like the last town in Wisconsin before you crossed over into Minnesota, into Minneapolis proper and all that kind of stuff, right? So we're in upstate, way up in Wisconsin in January. And this is where you start getting into, like, down in Racine where I grew up, you didn't see it as much, but this is where you start getting to, like, the hotel we stayed in has outlets on sticks in the parking lot. So, like, between every 2 parking spaces, there's a outlet box. So you can plug your car into it. Because people that live there have extension cords that go into their cars. Not to charge their electric batteries, but basically you have a heating element that you install on your oil pan and on your gas tank and or your engine block somewhere to keep your engine block from freezing and breaking. This is the hotel we stayed in for this trip. Like, and this is all the hotels up there had that. Like, it was just normal up there.
Yeah.
So we do the hockey tournament, this whole thing, and the what ends up happening, long story short, what ends up happening, the oil pan in the Nissan Sentra breaks. It freezes and breaks. I hitch a ride home with one of my buddies on the hockey team. My dad stays in bumfuck Wisconsin to get a new oil pan, put on the Blue Demon, and drive home. But it was like negative 10 degrees air temperature, not wind chill, just air temperature overnight. The place we played hockey in, because it was this tournament or whatever, they had to have an ambulance on it. They had to have an ambulance at the tournament, and the ambulance didn't fit inside. So, like, the garage door in the corner of this arena, which is a little tiny whatever arena, the garage door didn't quite close, and it was like miserably cold. Like, I've never been cold playing hockey because you have so much pads and stuff on that it's just hot. Right. It's just part of the thing. But it was cold playing hockey to the point where we were adding stuff to our gear to stay warm whilst playing hockey inside at this tournament. And it was just a Tuesday. That was just the way life was in that neighborhood. And we ended up taking third in that tournament. And my buddy broke his shoulder. It was rough.
I'm sure it seemed kind of normal at the time, but it was still somewhat of an anomaly.
It was anomalous to me because that was a little bit further than I was used to in previous years.
Right. I'm saying even just for people in general, like, it's even throughout the U.S., I mean, outside of...
Negative 10's fucking cold. Yeah, you're right. Nobody would... we didn't cover your story.
Like, we live in... Yeah, so-and-so. Like, it's just something we're used to. Like, that happens on the rare occasion, not very
right,
often.
But it's not such... It's that it's not rare enough that they don't know how to handle it, is the difference, I think.
I mean, negative 10.
You handle it.
That's not normal.
No, it's not normal, but it's not so abnormal that you don't have it's not so abnormal that normal people don't have that in the back of their heads, the contingency that they have to deal with from time to time. Like if it was -10 here ever, that'd be crazy. But if it's -10 a couple times over the winter up there, that's normal.
I mean, we had it last winter.
Yeah, and that was crazy
for like a day.
And that was crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like that's not it's not abnormal enough for them that they don't have things in place to deal with it.
Right.
That's the kind of point I'm getting to, and that's the difference in why why probably whatever little small town that it's a 35,000 people up there probably has more plow trucks than we have here.
Right.
Because that's normal for their day-to-day life, at least their winter day life. Do you want to talk about beating up kids, or do you want to leave that one alone until later? I forgot about that.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Oh, we're running out of time. We got okay.
If you want to, I don't care.
I mean, January 24th, 2024, Nashville, Tennessee. One Tennessee Democratic lawmaker has proposed a ban on corporal punishment in schools. A bill filed by Senator Heidi Campbell of Nashville and Representative Jason Powell, also of Nashville, would officially prohibit the use of corporal punishment, otherwise known as paddling or spanking, in schools for Tennessee students. The law, if passed, would apply to all school officials, including teachers and administrators. Quote, teachers, school principals, or school personnel shall not use corporal punishment against a student, the bill states. Currently, Tennessee law allows for, close quote. Currently, Tennessee law allows for corporal punishment for, quote, good cause in order to maintain discipline and order within the public schools, close quote. There are some exceptions to the law, such as if the student has a disability, whatever. I don't know. What do you want to say about it? Like it's crazy. It's crazy that the laws that
I would like to see this passed.
It's crazy that it doesn't already exist.
Right.
I think it functionally already exists anyway.
What do you mean?
I mean, I think it it maybe not in so many words or whatever, but I think it functionally exists anyway. If any teacher,
I want to say in this article, it talks further down that. And whatever, I don't want to say it's maybe like a 1 year. It was like 1,000 cases in the state of Tennessee. Because it's not all counties. I want to say it's not the entire state that this is allowed.
All right. There are some exceptions to the law, such as if the student has a disability. Though parents of a child with a disability are currently able to submit permission in writing to allow it if necessary. In that case, state law says the principal must inform the parent that the school will be using it.
Right.
The bill has passed the initial steps as whatever.
I saw it when I searched for this story because I knew I had seen it a few days ago and I was trying to look for it again.
I can't imagine. I would like to hear the story of the last time it was used.
I mean, I want to say it talks about in that article that.
Not in this one. That was I just read the whole article on at least from the WATE site.
Oh, okay. I might have read the original one that talked about I want to say a couple of years ago, because I think this is like the second time she has tried to pass some kind of bill or that's what I'm looking for. Promote this.
I mean, they can't even use corporal punishment in fucking juvie. Like, I mean, you could have a correctional officer laying hands on a fucking kid in juvie,
right,
and getting away with it.
Right.
There's no fucking way. So if that's a I don't care if it's legal or not. There's no fucking way any principal, teacher, or whatever is going to use it.
It's being used in our state.
I would
has
like
been used in our state.
I mean, has been, sure, but like currently, like within.
I mean, I'll try to find the one. I want to say it was from like 2 years ago, 1 to 2 years ago, that talked about. And the previous year there was, I want to say it was like 1,000 cases, or maybe it was a time span of maybe the past 10 years. It might have been in the past 10 years.
I mean, yeah, but if since 2014, if it's been used 100 times, then okay, maybe this law needs to exist, or 1,000 times.
Right.
100 times a year over the last 10 years.
I don't think this should be allowed at all.
It surprises me that not that it's allowed or not, that it's been used even if it is allowed.
So I'll say we talked about it before, because I want to say I saw something on it, and then I was like, wait, Wait, Tennessee's one of the states that
this
is still allowed?
If my principal at either one of my schools did it to one of my kids, then I'm going to jail.
Right.
And I don't give a shit about the fucking law and whether they're allowed to do it or not. But if I'm going to go to jail for beating the shit out of them, for beating the shit out of my kid, then that's the most retarded combination of sentences that's ever been put together. I mean, it just is.
Well, I mean, on the state law, one's legal, one's not.
I mean, that's fine, but it doesn't make it less retarded. Retarded is a terrible word to use. I apologize, but it doesn't make it less ridiculous.
No, but in the eyes of the law, you're the only one that's held culpable.
That's fine, and then I will sit happily in jail brewing on it, and I guess the state will get to raise my kid from there.
Possibly.
And then I'll come out and fucking murder some people and go back the rest of my life. That's fucking bullshit. It's the dumbest shit ever.
You're going to come and murder some people and just go back to the rest of your life.
I'll go back for the rest of my life, but my kid will at least know that his dad fucking killed somebody who ruined his life too. So
yeah,
that's fuck. I mean, it's like I don't know. I can't imagine a scenario where anybody, an administrator or teacher, thought they could lay hands on a kid and get away with it. Legally or not, even if it is technically legal.
Right.
Legally or not, that thought they could get away with it and keep their job or not have some repercussion for their actions.
If you were going to do it, I think the school system was supposed to notify you prior to. But
again,
also,
back, they notify me
while
when
this was
bumps his
happening
head in the playground.
While this was happening, or while the punishment, quote unquote, is being administered, there has to be a principal or administrator present, I guess, to make sure you don't hit them too hard. I don't know. Apparently it stemmed from something that happened like 2 or 3 years ago when I think there was a lawsuit that was filed when there were actually like pictures that was taken after the fact of the quote unquote punishment or whatever that was given.
Again, I don't doubt that it does occur.
When I first saw it a couple of years ago, I want to say we brought it up once. I don't think we talked about it too much. But I was just amazed. I was like, wait. I was like,
again, just in the phrasing,
you can do that in our state. What?
Just in the phrasing in general, it's not that the state is permitting it. It's not disqualifying it from existing. They're not saying you're allowed to. They're just saying the current law says you're not allowed to. I would presume. It doesn't say anything on the topic.
To essentially, it's allowing.
But again, this is one of the things about law in general that confuses the shit out of me. And lawyer Jamie actually hit me up. He wants to come back on the show. We might have him next week. This is one of the things that confuses the shit out of me. It's like the same thing with that stupid abortion thing we were talking about earlier. It's like if I take somebody else's kid out of state without the parents' knowledge, it's kidnapping. Why do I need a special new law that says it's whatever? It doesn't matter what the reason I did. I kidnapped a fucking child. If I spank a kid who isn't my kid in my house because they're misbehaving, I fucking hit a kid. That's assault of a minor. It doesn't matter what the circumstances leading up to it or surrounding it are. If I have a kid staying over that's a friend of my kid and they're misbehaving, I say that's not okay. That's not how we do things in our house, and I fucking smack them in the face. That's fucking child abuse. Not right. Child abuse. It's assault of a minor.
Right.
I don't care what the circumstances don't matter. Why do we need a law? Like that's what confuses me about this conversation in both these things. But like this one specifically, okay, it's not illegal to spank a kid at school. It is illegal for somebody to lay hands on a child, period. Period. It doesn't need to be specified at school or not. It is illegal for anybody to lay hands on a child in any sort of striking fashion. Period. We don't need a special subset of law. Unless there's a specific carve-out that says it's child abuse to hit a kid, except if you're the parent or a school teacher and administrator.
Yeah. I mean, it's framed in then, I don't remember the actual verbiage of it, that when there is no other recourse available or whatever.
Yeah.
When that's essentially the last resort of when this can happen, when it's allowable.
I mean, because in the article, currently Tennessee law allows for corporal punishment. That's a very vague statement. Allows means what? Means doesn't say you can't.
Basically,
or,
that is the definition.
Then
of allow.
It's still fucking assault of a minor.
Okay.
To me, I don't know how you wouldn't. I don't know how a lawyer would interpret it. But like, I can't imagine they would interpret it any differently. Maybe that's a more accurate way of how I'd go about it.
At some point in the past,
if one of my kids' teachers spanks my kid,
they carve out the caveat that if it's within the school grounds of this happening,
if it is explicitly carved out that they're allowed to, then yes, that needs to get fixed.
Right. And suppose she tried to pass this a couple of years ago and it never made it. I don't think it made it.
Well, because she ran with a fucking D after her name. That's her fault. Rerun with an R after your name, and then you can actually get some shit done. The R's that run the fucking show aren't going to pass.
You're not faulted for what you wanted to pass.
Yeah, 100%. 1,000%. We're not going to pass this because you have a D after your name. Like, I would love to know whether
it's her fault. Yeah.
Yeah. Run with an R and you're fine. I would love to know the last time the State House passed a bill that was introduced by a D.
I'm sure there's somebody that can answer that question, but I don't. Would know who.
Because I know Gloria's that passed 0.
I mean, it'd have to be one of their minions that could dig through this shit and figure out.
No, it'd just be. I mean, any of the House Democrats are going to know pretty quick. Because when's the last time one of your friends actually passed something?
Yeah.
Because it's my joke about it's
one of your 12 friends,
right? It's my joke about why Gloria has the best job ever, because she doesn't have to do anything but pitch fit. It's not that that's her personality or anything like that. Not that she doesn't lend well to it. It's like Gloria is so good at her job because she doesn't have to be successful, because nobody expects her to be successful, because she runs with a D after her name, and everybody knows that D's don't get shit done. It's not that they don't want to. It's not that she's not trying to. Realistically, it's that she doesn't she doesn't. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, one more. Do it.
The weird.
You got me all excited on the snowplows.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to.
I was going to bring up another controversial topic, but capital punishment.
I mean, what about it?
There was a Alabama guy just got executed using the. It's approved in other states, but this was like the first time.
Is this an argument over methods or whether capital should be allowed in the first place?
Bit of both.
Okay.
That's that. And
I go back and forth like on the.
I don't want to go down it yet.
I mean, on the broader one, it's like I don't know. Like to me,
I used to be for it, but
to me, it's a fine. Like because if I'm going to be the guy that's going to sit here and pitch a fit about schools wasting money, then as I understand it, most capital punishment is more expensive than just leaving them in a box.
All right.
And honestly, I think,
which I wouldn't have thought, but yeah, that is
right. And honestly, I think leaving you in a box for the rest of your life is more less humane and more of a punishment than just putting you out of your misery.
I don't know about less humane.
I don't know. Maybe I watched Oz too.
Arguable on the circumstances. Yeah.
Maybe I've watched Oz too many times, but that sort of thing. But I don't know. I'm here or there on it as it being an allowable thing. Like, it scares me when you have states like Texas and Tennessee for at least a little while that are like all gung ho and like excited about fucking killing people. That freaks me out.
Well, another like caveat of like this guy that just got executed. Apparently, this wasn't the first time they've tried to execute him, and apparently it was like 4 hours of them. I guess. I think apparently they were trying to. They struggled for 4 hours to try to. Put an IV in him.
Because he got fucked up AIDS for being a junkie?
I don't think it was that specifically.
It's weird. I mean,
but then this time it was. This was like the news. Like
when the missus was in nursing school, that was one of the things when they got into that portion when they were talking about like how to like set IVs and shit like that.
Right.
Like the methods that they have available to them as a good phlebotomist, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Like a good phlebotomist, they can set an IV. Doesn't matter. There's nothing
for most people. I mean,
they're not for most
veins
people.
Are worse. I mean, it's going to depend on your blood pressure.
They may not be able to. They may not be able to set it in some of those normal places that you're used to. But if they're desperate, they'll throw it in your neck. They don't give a shit. Like they know how to find a vein that it can work. It may not be the one in your arm or your hand like they like to do when you're sitting in the gurney or whatever. But they'll put it in your neck. They'll put it in like your inner thigh. That's a big one that people don't use a lot. Between your toes. Junkies know how to between the toes.
I'm assuming if the story was correct that within 4 hours they tried multiple locations.
Then for 4 hours they poked him and they couldn't find a vein. It wasn't even about pumping him full of the drug that's killing him.
I believe so.
Just like,
I mean, some people just have.
That's fascinating. It's just fascinating to me. Like, we're so good,
collapsing veins, and etc.
We're so good as a species at killing each other, but somehow when we want to do it on purpose, it gets real complicated.
Right.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it's a great topic, and I think it's one that would be fun to expand upon with some more conversation. I don't think now's the time to do it, but
right.
I think it's interesting. Like I said, like I don't know. I don't. As with many things, I'm just super apathetic about it. Like, I really don't care. My preference, if I'm going to have to pick a preference, I'm going to take the cheaper option. Which, as I understand it, for the most part, the cheaper option is just to leave them in the box.
Right. That's more due to just appeals.
Right, and that's fine, and it's not a complaint about that's a whole, like, we can get into separate complaints about the justice system and how complicated and expensive it is and
right.
blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, like, if it's just a capital punishment conversation, it's like, I don't care. This person as long as this person is incapable of, if we agree that this person is incapable of correcting themselves and not continuing to do the harmful things to others that they're doing, if we agree to that, and we can set a situation where that can never happen, whether it's a box in a building in a hole in the ground or whether it's death, I really don't care. And so as long as A is getting taken care of, that this person never has the ability to do damage again, then anything past that is unimportant to me. And whichever is the cheaper option is the one I'm going to take.
Right.
That's,
Well, the main arguments come about is, the constitutional right against cruel and unusual punishment.
Well, that's how we got complicated in the way we kill people for capital punishment. I mean, I don't know. I think
we've thought we've come up with
more humane ways.
But,
but putting somebody in a box for the rest of their life is not humane. But we have to have some method of detention, right?
I mean, it's only considered inhumane because of the treatment in which they're put into. I mean, I don't think someone should, no matter their transgression against society, I don't think should be.
I mean, I think solitary confinement is generally evil. Like, it's a pretty fucked up thing to do, period.
Right. But I mean, some would argue, like, that's what they deserve.
But I mean,
the problem. Even then, I mean, just outside of just housing someone in an inhumane place would be considered cruel and unusual punishment.
I agree with that. But the problem is, like, it's like there's like levels to the levels of the levels. It's like,
right.
At some point, what are we doing? Criminal justice at large, what are we doing? Is this a detention system or is this a rehabilitation system? At least in the U.S. for right now, it is a detention system. It's not a rehabilitation system.
I mean, some of the corporal punishment was, corporal punishment was a deterrence, and it's not a deterrent.
But I mean, it doesn't. And to me, I know this is a chicken or the egg kind of thing, and this is a whole separate conversation, which is again why we should do this on a future episode because we're already running out of time on this one. Like the deterrent of the justice system at large is part of the problem. It's like, I don't know. It's like it's just this weird chicken today. Like, maybe it's a profit motive, maybe it's a bunch of other different shit going on. Like how many people? Like, I can't remember. There was a guy I was listening to. It was on the Breakfast Club. You know what the Breakfast Club is?
No.
It's like a morning radio show / podcast. Charlemagne the God, some other guys. It's an urban culture, whatever. And they were talking about it, and I mean, I trust him to not dump stats that are bullshit. And I want to say that it was over 50% of U.S. adults have some record in the criminal justice system.
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy. Like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Now, just in the small d democratic process, how is that possible?
I mean, I'd have to look at the stats of what they consider a criminal justice.
Or
a part of it.
Possession, I mean, also, anything. Like, if you've been arrested
right.
for anything, you're in the system.
Yeah.
And the point he was making on there is...
I could see it being close to half, but Yeah.
So I want to say it was like 60, 65, something like that is what he said. But I know it was over 50, and that's what freaked me out. I was like, like my initial take was like, no fucking way. And then I saw it, and I was like, brewing on it for a second. I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm in the system. Are you in the system?
No.
Really?
No.
What the fuck's wrong with you, man? I'm the cool kid here.
Yeah, what's wrong with me?
Everybody else is doing it. More than half the,
You have been arrested? What's wrong with you?
I got a misdemeanor somewhere floating around in the past for sure, or two. I'm all over the fucking system just because of all my business practices and shit like that too, which is weird because I'm the private guy that doesn't want them to know any of my fucking business. Which is weird because it's like I'm trying to go along with my life, and I got to sit here every time I fucking fill out one of these forms that I have to do for business. I'm sitting there going like, yeah, I got a record. I told you about it, like the fucking dog, the whole thing with the dog that I had.
That don't remember specifically.
When my dog attacked my neighbor's dog,
right,
and animal control came out,
right,
and I was talking like the neighbor came down and we were talking about it. He's a cool dude. I'm not mad at him at all. He was pretty respectful. He's like, dogs are dogs, whatever. It's like it sucks. I just it's a big deal. And it's like, yeah, whatever you need, man. Send me the vet bill. I'll take care, do everything I can. I hate that this happened. It sucks. I'm sorry, my dog's an asshole. Whatever. And this is before the new fence, and I was like, we're getting a new fence put in. We're going to do the best we can to keep this from happening again. Whatever. And I'm talking to animal control, and I was like, is there anything for me? He's like, no, you're already in the system. Oh.
I don't think that's what they meant.
No, that's what they meant. They didn't need any information from me. All the information was already on the original report, and anything about me and my dog was already in there.
Assuming they meant your name and information was already in the report.
Yeah.
I think you expounded upon that of like, oh, they know about my criminal history, and they know how the fuck would they know about your dog?
Because I was attached to the current report.
I'd say more so just from like the Knox County because you have his tags for rabies, etc. That your dog is listed.
My dog's a dumbass. I love my dog.
I don't know.
I
get the impression that you were assuming that they had more information than you knew they had. They're like, no, we have his rabies tag here, so yes, we have him as a registered canine.
Right, whatever. All right. Anyway, we bring that back up. I would love to go further into this one. I really would. Like not the dog one, but the criminal justice stuff. I would really like to get AC to see if is he alive. Have you talked to him recently?
You talk to him more than I do.
So no.
I got a text response from him a couple weeks ago.
If you've talked to him this year, you've talked to him before I have.
It was last year.
Okay. Anyway, I'd still like to go down the rabbit hole of like the medical system thing that we've teased a gajillion times. I don't know how to do it. It just doesn't fucking matter. Like I'm pissed off at Blue Cross Blue Shield right now because rate changes and shit like that. It's a whole big fucking mess.
Right.
Everything sucks or everything's awesome. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I like my life. I love my things. I love the things we do. I love arguing about stupid stuff. I love getting all excited about snowplows in Knox County School. That's what we do. Because I don't know. Anybody listening to this right now know that Knox County Schools own snowplows? Sam, did you know that before we talked about it tonight?
About what?
That Knox County Schools own snowplows?
No.
Exactly. So you heard it here first, but breaking fucking news. Anyway, almostagreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out all the cool stuff we got going on in there. Go to your favorite podcast provider. While you're there, give a friend, follow, like, share, thumbs up, whatever it is you can do on the platform to help give us a bump up to get us a little higher on lists when people search things like local politics, things going on near me that isn't bullshit. Because these are important things. These are happening things. There's a lot of people, a lot of money moving around, and you get to be a part of it if you want to be. And it's really not that hard because I'm an idiot, and I'm deeper than 99% of Knox County. So text it to your friends. Do whatever you can. More interviews are in the pipeline. We'll talk to you all soon.